provided by the system, and depending on his own abilities to bridge this gap, 3 to 4 years is already quite fast. If relying only on human capabilities, it might take not just 3 or 4 years, but even 30 or 40 years. And they might still struggle to establish the most basic extraterrestrial life support systems. After all, the fields of study involved are too broad and the technical difficulties are too high. However, for Su Chun, who had already tasted the benefits of the system, 3 to 4 years felt somewhat long. He thought to himself, if only there were blueprints. He considered that if he had the relevant blueprints, with the system's enhancement, perhaps these technologies could be resolved in a year, no, maybe in just a few months. The efficiency would be greatly improved. However, he also knew that such blueprints are rare and hard to come by, so it was just a fleeting thought. He then prepared to dive back into his research. Just then, someone suddenly visited. Su Chun looked up and found it was Lu Qingji. He was a bit surprised and jokingly said, "Old Lu, what brings you here? Are you looking to drink with me again?" Just thinking about the recent gathering and drinking with Lu Qingji made him feel a bit apprehensive. After finishing the Spring Festival Gala, I finally had a bit of free time, but I was dragged by Lu Qingji to drink. As a result, I accidentally got completely drunk, and the discomfort from that experience is still fresh in my memory. Lu Qingji smirked and said helplessly, "You still have the nerve to talk. Last time we drank, your aunt scolded me for a long time, saying that you're still a student and it's not good to get you drunk. With your drinking capacity, I think it's better to skip it next time." As he spoke, he found a chair to sit down, and his expression became serious as he began to discuss important matters. "Let us stop the small talk. I'm here to discuss something very important with you." While speaking, Lu Qingji opened his briefcase and took out a stack of documents. Su Chen's attention was immediately drawn to the documents in his hand, and his eyes lit up as he thought, "Blueprints?" Unable to contain his curiosity and excitement, he asked curiously, "Old Lu, are these blueprints?" Chapter 283, Space Jump Engine. Looking at the blueprints in Lu Qingji's hands, Su Chun was astonished. After a quick glance, he confirmed that the blueprints were exactly what he needed. Lu Qingji nodded, noticing Su Chen's excited demeanor, and hurriedly added, "Don't get too excited. These blueprints have a special origin and may not necessarily be useful." Su Chun didn't care about that. He quickly took the blueprints and eagerly started flipping through them. However, after just a few glimpses, he froze, thinking, a special origin? What is so special about it? He continued to flip through the blueprints while pondering. Just then, a voice from the system suddenly echoed in his mind, detected that the host has recognized a certain technological concept blueprint. Starting to decompile. Warning, decompilation failed. The system is now calling upon internal technology to compile independently. Compilation progress. 1, 2, 3 compilation progress. 100. Compilation successful. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the design blueprint for the Space Jump Engine. The Space Jump Engine allows a spacecraft to create a warp bubble around it, enabling the spacecraft to travel at faster than light speeds. The speed is categorized by warp levels. The higher the warp level, the faster the speed, through the distortion of space, thus achieving rapid travel between various star systems, facilitating interstellar exploration, diplomacy, and combat. Another important function of the Space Jump Engine is to fold space, allowing the spacecraft to move almost instantaneously from one point in space to another distant point, greatly reducing the time required for interstellar travel and making it easier for the operator to perform various tasks. As the system finished speaking, a flood of theoretical and technical knowledge related to the Space Jump Engine surged into Su Chun's mind. After about half a minute, once Su Chun had digested this knowledge, he finally came back to his senses. At this moment, he was filled with astonishment, unable to help but mutter, "It's actually the Space Jump Engine?" Through the detailed introduction provided by the system, he gained a rather profound understanding of the engine's function. In addition to enabling the spacecraft to travel at light speed, this engine has a magical ability to instantly move the spacecraft from one point in space to another. This is quite an extraordinary feature. If such an engine could be equipped on the space carrier, it would be incredible. It would mean that the space carrier could instantly reach any location on the blue planet. Its maneuverability would be maximized. Just imagine that scene. Like something out of a sci-fi movie, it's truly astonishing. Su Chun immediately decided to put the interstellar farming plan on hold. After all, the allure of this space jump engine was too great. Once it was developed and applied to the space carrier, it would undoubtedly make the space carrier even more powerful, representing a qualitative leap for the military strength of his nation. Thinking of this, Su Chun couldn't help but smirk. Memories of past actions targeting his nation surfaced in his mind, and he thought, it would be best for them not to stir trouble in the future, or else the space carrier battle group could appear right above them in an instant. Ha ha ha, when that time comes, who knows if they can handle it. With such powerful equipment, his nation would have more confidence when facing challenges. Lu Qingji, noticing the faint smile at the corner of Su Chen's mouth, mistakenly believed that the blueprint was indeed very helpful for his research and was instantly excited, asking eagerly, "So, how is it, Xiao Chun? Is this blueprint helpful for your research?" Su Chun then came back to his senses, glanced at the blueprint in his hand, and deliberately downplayed it, saying, "Well, the theories involved in this blueprint are unproven, and the research direction is not very profound. It could serve as a novel setting in a sci-fi story. But if one really wants to conduct research based on it, it's almost impossible, and it's no different from those previous concept designs." Seeing Su Chun dismiss the blueprint as worthless, Lu Qingji's previously excited mood was instantly doused like cold water. disappearing without a trace. Feeling a bit dejected, he asked in confusion, "So, does this mean we were deceived? This blueprint actually has no value at all." Su Chen nodded seriously, saying, "In someone else's hands, it might indeed be useless." Upon hearing this, Lu Qingji felt even more frustrated. Just as he was about to complain, Su Chen shifted gears and continued, "However, it's quite helpful for me." Lu Qingji was now puzzled, frowning and asking, "So, is this blueprint useful or not? You're making me confused." Su Chen was taken aback for a moment, then jokingly said, "Why are you so fixated on this?" Lu Qingji sighed helplessly and said, "Let me explain the specifics to you, including the source of this blueprint. In fact, this blueprint was given to us by the director of the CIA, or rather, the former Director Smith. He wants to join our country, and this blueprint is the gift he brought." After learning about this situation, the authorities immediately asked me to verify the authenticity of the blueprint. If it's real, it suggests that Smith may indeed have the intention to defect to us. If it's fake, then Smith's defection might just be a complete conspiracy. Upon hearing this, Su Chen was stunned, his eyes wide open in shock. Unable to contain himself, he exclaimed, "What? Did I hear that right? The head of the enemy's spy network is defecting? This is just too ridiculous." He never expected that there would be such a complex and dramatic story behind the blueprint. For a moment, it all felt unbelievable. Lu Qingji quickly said, "Don't laugh just yet. So, is this blueprint real or not? Do you think Smith is genuinely defecting, or is it a conspiracy?" He found the situation amusing as well. After all, this concerns the safety and interests of the nation, and they needed to clarify it quickly. Su Chen pondered for a moment and understood Lu Qingji's insistence on verifying the authenticity of the blueprint. He thought carefully and then slowly said, "This blueprint is similar to the previous mechs and electromagnetic cannons. It's conceptual. It's all about whether it's real or fake. If you're fixated on its authenticity, that is quite tricky, because if you say it's real, others definitely can't create anything based on this blueprint. But if you say it's fake..." Su Chen paused with a smirk before continuing, "I can make it." At this remark, Lu Qingji's body jolted as if he had been electrocuted, his eyes wide with shock. He stammered, "Xiao Chun, what did you say? You can make it?" Chapter 284, No Room for Error. Lu Qingji took the blueprint again and examined it closely, as if he were trying to find some hidden treasure within it. However, after looking for a long time, he remained puzzled and couldn't understand anything. He helplessly looked up at Su Chen, his face full of confusion, and asked, "What exactly is this thing? What is its use?" Su Chen smiled, thinking that if he went into too much technical detail, Lu Qingji probably wouldn't understand. So he tried to keep it straightforward. "You might not understand if I go into specifics, so let me be blunt. With the devices on this blueprint, our aerospace carrier can instantly reach the airspace of the enemy country from our territory." Upon hearing this, Lu Qingji was genuinely shocked, his eyes wide open in disbelief. And he couldn't help but blurt out, "Is it really that awesome?" Su Chen nodded affirmatively and said, "It really is that awesome." Lu Qingji was now extremely excited. As a senior general of the nation, he understood the importance of military strategy and tactics, and he knew that once this technology was realized, it would bring about a tremendous change to the nation's military capabilities. This meant that the mobility of the military could be enhanced to the extreme. In an instant, one could appear behind the enemy forces, catching them off guard and delivering a heavy blow. No, given the situation, why was he still thinking about tactics? It would be better to directly show up at the enemy command center and take out their leader. Lu Qingji thought excitedly. The more he contemplated, the more he felt this technology was truly remarkable. It was nothing short of a game-changer in warfare. However, what terrified him even more was that Su Chen had just claimed he could build this space leap engine. This was completely unexpected. He quickly confirmed again, "Xiao Chun, can you really build this thing?" Su Chen smiled calmly and confidently replied, "Give me some time, and I'll show you the finished product." Su Chen had actually estimated the time in his mind, and continued, "It will take a maximum of 3 months to build this space leap engine." Su Chen believed he could manufacture the engine in 3 months, but that didn't mean the engine was easy to create. In fact, in the past, under conventional research and development timelines, it might have taken 1 or 2 years to produce. But now it was different. Earlier, during his research process, Su Chen had unintentionally completed the most challenging part of the Space Leap engine, so the manufacturing time could now be significantly shortened. The Space Leap engine required the distortion of space to achieve speed surpassing light, and this process demanded vast amounts of energy. Previously, experts speculated that even harnessing the energy of the entire planet might not be enough to distort space. However, this claim was inaccurate. After fully digesting the related theories and manufacturing methods provided by the system, Su Chen had become quite knowledgeable about the Space Leap engine. The energy needed for this engine was not as terrifying as imagined. Just the energy produced by 2 nuclear fusion reactors would be sufficient to achieve the distortion of space. Of course, at present, this range was only as large as a spacecraft. If one wanted to expand the range, more energy would be required. Listening to him, Lu Qingji rubbed his hands together in excitement. His eyes were filled with anticipation as he asked, "Xiao Chun, how confident are you in building this thing?" As soon as he spoke, Su Chen could tell that Lu Qingji was quite eager about the Space Leap engine. Su Chen pondered for a moment and confidently said, 99%. Hearing this, Lu Qingji burst into laughter, his voice filled with joy and excitement as he repeatedly exclaimed, 99%, great, great, great. You really are something. All right, I'll wait for your good news. With that, Lu Qingji prepared to get up and leave. After all, the task was complete. And he didn't want to delay Su Chen's research. This was a matter of national importance, and every minute counted. However, just as he stood up, as if suddenly remembering something important, he paused, turned to Su Chun, and said, "By the way, Xiao Chun, how should we handle the Smith situation? I also don't know how to explain it to the higher-ups. You said this blueprint is useful, but you also mentioned it's just a conceptual drawing with no research value. If it's not useful, how could it still help you? I was thinking, it doesn't matter if it's a black cat or a white cat. As long as it catches mice, it's a good cat. But then again, who knows what the other party is really thinking by bringing a useless document to try and join our country?" Seeing Lu Qingji still tangled up in this issue, Su Chen suddenly had a brilliant idea. He leaned closer to Lu Qingji and whispered a couple of words in his ear. Upon hearing this, Lu Qingji burst into laughter, almost to the point of tears. While laughing, he said, "Ha ha, when did you become so cunning? All right, let's do as you said." His expression suggested that Su Chen's idea was exceptionally clever. After that, Lu Qingji left the laboratory. After acquiring the relevant technology for the spatial transition engine, Su Chun dove into his work like an arrow leaving the bow, tirelessly starting the manufacturing process. Once he got into it, he returned to his usual hard-working mode, focusing all his energy on the research and production at hand, as if everything outside was irrelevant to him. The leaders above were well aware of the importance of Su Chen's work and its intensity. They were worried that he might overexert himself, so they specially assigned him a complete health support team. This team was impressive, consisting entirely of renowned nutrition experts from the country. Their task was to constantly monitor Su Chen's health, providing professional guidance and control over everything from diet to lifestyle adjustments. Nowadays, Su Chen's health management was classified as a top priority. There could be no mistakes. His work was crucial to many key projects related to the country's future development. Just as Su Chun was engrossed in his research, his phone suddenly rang. The ringtone sounded particularly jarring in the quiet laboratory. He paused his work, picked it up, and was surprised to see it was his father calling. He hesitated for a moment before pressing the answer button, and immediately, his father's excited voice came through. "Son, are you busy? I have great news for you." Su Chen's father sounded unable to contain his joy, as if he had some monumental news to share. Su Chen was curious, and his father seemed to be teasing him, pausing as if he wanted Su Chen to guess what it was. Su Chen couldn't help but chuckle, thinking how childish his father was at this moment. "Is it that our house is going to be redeveloped?" Su Chen guessed immediately. His father laughed and said, "What redevelopment? Are you just dreaming of getting rich overnight? Your mother and I have decided to buy you a car." Su Chen was completely taken aback by his father's words. In his impression, their family's financial situation was just average. Of course, that was only the surface situation. In fact, over the years, he has accumulated assets worth over 100 million solely through government subsidies, his salary from the research institute, and various miscellaneous rewards. However, he has never mentioned this money to his parents, who are unaware that their son has become so wealthy. Moreover, Su Chen himself has no strong desire to spend money. After all, his daily needs are taken care of by someone else, and his parents lead a relatively simple life with no significant expenses. So he really has no concept of money. But when his parents suddenly wanted to buy a car, it was quite a hefty expenditure given their original economic situation. He was curious and thought to himself, could it be that his parents had made money without him knowing? So he asked in confusion, "Dad, why did you suddenly think of buying me a car? I'm still in college and don't need one." On the other end of the line, his father chuckled and said, "You don't know? Our electricity prices are now incredibly low, and buying new energy vehicles has become popular. I thought new energy cars would increase in price, but unexpectedly, the government has started to heavily subsidize them, covering nearly half the cost, with a maximum reimbursement of 200,000. We are really in a good time now. By the time you graduate, you'll be preparing for major life events. So we'll buy the car in advance. Let me know when you have time to come back, and we'll go pick one out together. I'll cover the expenses." Su Chen was taken aback. He didn't expect that there were such strong policies being developed around the Eternal Day plan. The subsidy for new energy vehicles was unprecedentedly substantial. Logically, under the dual impacts of the energy crisis and ultra-low electricity prices, electric vehicle companies should have seized the opportunity to raise prices wildly and reap profits. Unexpectedly, the government went against the trend, not only preventing price increases but also lowering the prices of energy vehicles through subsidies, which was beyond Su Chen's expectations. Su Chen thought to himself, with this, new energy vehicles are definitely going to sell like hotcakes in the country. No, not just in the country, with such a significant price advantage and technological edge. It could even lead to the export of new energy vehicles to foreign markets, allowing domestic brands to reach the world. Su Chen was truly shocked by this series of actions from the government. At the same time, he admired the foresight and strategic planning of the authorities even more. Meanwhile, other countries were left bewildered by this move, especially those that place a high value on capital and profit. Originally, under the energy crisis, the sales of gasoline vehicles in these countries were dismal, and they had already begun considering switching to producing energy vehicles. After the announcement of the Eternal Day plan, they completely abandoned gasoline cars and started producing new energy vehicles. This included some world-renowned automotive brands, such as Benz, Lamborghini, and Maserati. They all saw this unprecedented business opportunity and were eager to cash in. Thus, they set the prices of their cars quite high to reap a wave of consumers. However, The automotive industry from a certain country charged into this global trade war like a rampaging bull, aggressively capturing market share with an overwhelming presence. In a presidential office, the atmosphere was particularly oppressive. The leader looked at a market research document in hand with a dark expression, his brow tightly furrowed, eyes filled with anger and helplessness. According to their market research results, the automotive market share from that country was skyrocketing worldwide. If this continued, the automotive brands from that country might monopolize the entire global market. They had anticipated that the new energy initiative would have a disruptive impact on the automotive sector. So they had started their global strategy early, waiting for the announcement of the initiative while other companies were still formulating their strategies overnight. Now, the situation was developing just as they had predicted. The leader was extremely furious. He never expected that the automotive sector from that country could create such a significant ripple. Moreover, the momentum was growing stronger, making it increasingly difficult for them to cope. The Secretary of State, standing nearby, wore a worried expression and asked, "Mr. President, what do you think? That country is monopolizing our global business with extremely low electricity prices and energy vehicles. If this continues, our automotive companies won't be able to hold on." After listening, the leader took a deep breath, paused in silence for a moment. He knew very well that there seemed to be only one solution now: to issue a restriction order prohibiting vehicles from that country from entering the market. In order to protect the domestic automotive industry and perhaps slightly curb the expansion momentum of their automotive sector globally. However, he also understood that while this solution seemed to address an immediate crisis, once the restriction order was signed, the citizens wanting to purchase energy vehicles would surely be unhappy. It would likely spark a massive wave of opposition domestically, and the situation might become even more difficult to control. But he truly had no better options left. Ultimately, the leader gritted his teeth, as if making a determined decision, and said, "We can only sign the restriction order." Before signing, he added, "Let us not involve other countries. We'll resist together." In a small two-story building in a certain capital, a different atmosphere filled the air. A family of 4 was gathered there. Unlike ordinary families in that country, the women in this household had blonde hair and blue eyes, making them particularly striking. By the window, the daughter looked up, wide-eyed, and asked the man, "Daddy, will we go back?" Her innocent voice carried a mix of curiosity and reluctance. After all, leaving behind familiar homeland for a brand new country brought many feelings for a 9-year-old child. The father gently patted her head and said softly, "We won't be going back for now. We're going to start a new life here, dear. You need to adapt to life here." There was a hint of determination in his eyes. Even though the road ahead might be filled with uncertainties, once a choice had been made, they could only move forward courageously. The 9-year-old daughter was quite understanding. She nodded obediently. To avoid worrying her father, she forced a sweet smile and said, "Dad, I really like it here. It feels even safer than our previous home." Her little adult demeanor was both comforting and slightly heart-wrenching to see. "But I do miss Kiki a bit," she suddenly added with a trace of regret, her longing evident. The man paused for a moment, a hint of apology crossing his face as he replied, "I'm sorry, dear, but Kiki couldn't come with us. I didn't expect you to like Kiki so much. I'll ask my friend to take good care of Kiki." He understood that there was a deep bond between his daughter and their pet. Leaving in such a hurry had indeed prevented them from bringing the pet along, which was unfortunate. The daughter nodded again, her voice full of affection as she said, "I really love Kiki. She's the only cat I've ever seen that can do a backflip." Hearing this, the father was taken aback. Clearly, he had no idea that Kiki had this unique skill, and he couldn't help but chuckle. This family was indeed the Smiths, who had traveled from a certain country to another. After some consideration, the latter had accepted their application to enter. However, they were still under surveillance. After all, due to Smith's previous special identity, the security agency needed to conduct a more thorough investigation to ensure the authenticity of his defection and to assess any potential security threats. In fact, Smith himself was somewhat surprised. He had originally approached the situation with a trial-and-error mindset, thinking that the gift he brought would earn the trust of the new country. He never expected it to actually work, although the trust appeared to be limited. Being able to move from one country to another was already a significant achievement for him. However, he was now puzzled, contemplating, how could a set of blueprints with no research value lead to their acceptance? Did they not realize it was just conceptual material with almost no practical value? It seemed impossible. Given the current research capabilities of that country, they couldn't possibly overlook the value of those blueprints. Either he was ignorant, or perhaps what he deemed useless blueprints could actually hold immense value in their hands, which was why they accepted him. As he thought about this, a sense of unease crept in. He didn't dare to think further. If that were the case, their research capabilities were truly terrifying. He even began to entertain wild thoughts, wondering if they had connections with extraterrestrials. He decided he couldn't think any more about it. Smith quickly shook his head, not daring to continue along this frightening line of thought. The more he thought about it, the more shocked and uneasy he felt. Moreover, he knew very well that since he was accepted by the country, he could not keep jumping back and forth between this country and the other. Even if he couldn't be of much help, he at least couldn't do anything that would harm the interests of the country. After all, with its strong capabilities displayed in various aspects, the country has undoubtedly become the true leader of the Blue Planet. If he were to provoke the country's disdain, there would truly be no place for him in this world, no matter how vast it was. Thinking of this, Smith couldn't help but take out a USB drive from his pocket. He kept glancing at it, wondering What could the country be doing with the blueprints for the space transition engine? Would they really conduct research on it? Various possibilities kept surfacing in his mind, but he felt they were unrealistic since the technical challenges were indeed too high. Forget it, let them research. If they really succeed, then they are impressive. Smith muttered to himself, then shook his head again. However, I asked some experts before, and making a space transition engine requires overcoming many technical hurdles. With the current research capabilities of that country, it would take at least 70 to 80 years. Even if our country is powerful, it would still take at least 5 to 6 years to develop it, or even 1 or 2 decades. Smith certainly didn't mean to belittle the country. In fact, he felt that his assumptions were based on an objective assessment of the country's current research capabilities. After all, the space transition engine involves too many complex elements, and each technology breakthrough is revolutionary, with difficulty comparable to building a space carrier. Even more difficult, it's truly a technology that seems like science fiction. Come on, country. By the time you build it, I guess I'll be nearing retirement age. As Smith spoke, he stood by the window, gazing towards the west of the country, his eyes reflecting a mix of complex emotions, anticipation, and a sense of wonder about the unknown. Following the direction of his gaze, hundreds of kilometers away, in a research base located in the mountains, Su Chen stood in front of a large device. This device had a unique appearance, resembling a giant silver-gray alloy football, about the size of a van. The front end featured a hexagonal energy gathering port made of transparent blue crystal, edged with golden conductive strips. The main body was wrapped in multiple layers of concentric circular rings, with the outer layer inscribed with rune patterns, while the inner layer glowed with a ghostly green material. A spherical core spun rapidly under a faint purple light at the center, and the back end had a wide and deep energy jetting port that sprayed a blue-white spiral beam. The bottom and sides had sturdy metal supports with cushioning and various connection interfaces for stable installation and system collaboration, giving it an overall sci-fi and energetic feel. Su Chun's face was filled with excitement and exhilaration as he couldn't help but shout loudly. The space transition engine has finally been built. Chapter 287. Testing in just a month and a half, Su Chun, with his intelligence and the powerful assistance of the system, successfully manufactured a basic version of the space transition engine. This was nearly half the time he initially expected, which was 3 months. The reasons for this achievement were twofold. On one hand, the system's help was immense. The various theoretical knowledge and technical support provided by the system laid a solid foundation for this manufacturing process. Additionally, during some preliminary manufacturing work, Su Chun accidentally overcame the challenging aspects of the space transition engine, much like clearing a crucial level, which significantly accelerated the subsequent manufacturing process. On the other hand, the space transition engine he created was merely a basic version. Its ability to distort and fold space-time was limited, and it still had a considerable gap compared to the ideal fully realized engine capable of ultra-long distance transitions. However, every beginning is difficult. As long as this basic version of the space transition engine could successfully pass the tests and meet the various indicators, creating a more powerful engine with a broader transition range would just be a matter of time. Su Chun was eager at this moment, thinking about quickly conducting tests to see the actual performance. Just then, the phone placed aside suddenly rang, the sound starkly out of place in the quiet research base. Su Chun hurriedly picked up the phone, and to his shock, he saw hundreds of missed calls on the screen. His mouth couldn't help but twitch slightly. During this time, he had been so absorbed in manufacturing the space transition engine that he hadn't even checked his phone. He hadn't expected to accumulate so many missed calls. As he pondered this, he pressed the answer button, and immediately, the familiar and somewhat urgent voice of Elder Qin came through. "You brat, you finally answered the phone." Su Chun was taken aback, realizing it was Elder Qin who had called. He hadn't even noticed the caller ID. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Su Chun smiled sheepishly and said, "I've been too busy lately to check my phone." "Elder Qin, is there something important you wanted to discuss?" Elder Qin seemed to have something significant to talk about, his tone serious as he replied, "When are you free? I need to come see you in person. This matter is quite important." Su Chen thought for a moment. Even if he took the fastest space mech from the capital to his location, it would still take quite some time. Seeing Elder Qin's anxious demeanor, he raised an eyebrow and suddenly had an idea, smiling as he said, "Why don't I come to find you? You wait for me at the 312 Air Force Base." Elder Qin quickly objected, "No, I heard from Lu Qingji that you've been busy with a major research project. I can't let you come all the way here. I'll come to you. Just wait for me." Elder Qin thought to himself that he couldn't let this matter interfere with Su Chen's important research. This is crucial for the future development of the nation, so I insist on making the trip myself. However, Su Chun continued to smile and said, "The research has been completed, and I just want to conduct an experiment. Please wait for me." Old Qin was slightly taken aback, secretly surprised. Has it been completed so quickly? He calculated the time in his mind. It had been less than 2 months. What major research could be completed in such a short time? He thought Lu Qingji might have exaggerated, originally looking forward to witnessing Su Chen's significant achievements. He now felt somewhat disappointed. However, he didn't understand the specifics of the research, and upon hearing that Su Chun was preparing for an experiment, he thought for a moment and decided to go along with Su Chun's idea, saying, "All right, I'll wait for you at the 312 Air Force Base." Su Chun nodded, and as if remembering something, he added, "By the way, the upcoming tests are somewhat confidential, so please keep it under wraps." Old Qin was about to say that their nation was already the strongest in the world and didn't need to be so secretive. But as soon as the thought crossed his mind, he realized he was being a bit too complacent. No matter when. Confidentiality regarding important scientifiq research and experiments is certainly not something to take lightly. So he obediently replied, "All right, we'll do it your way. By the way, how long do you think it will take you to arrive?" As Su Chen spoke, he was already walking towards the space jump device next to the parked space mecha, casually responding, "Just give me a minute." Upon hearing this, Old Qin was stunned, with a look of disbelief on his face as he exclaimed, "A minute? Is that really possible? I won't even make it to the 312 base in that time. Wait a minute. Are you nearby? How could you be so fast? Even if you're riding the space mecha, it's impossible to get here that quickly." Old Qin was filled with confusion, unable to understand how Su Chen could arrive in just a minute, especially given the distance. Su Chen simply smiled and said, "That's a secret for now. Where are you?" Old Qin replied, "I'm currently on the aerospace carrier with Zhao Yong." Su Chen's eyes lit up upon hearing this and said, "That's perfect. Send me the coordinates for the central deck of the aerospace carrier." At that moment, Zhao Yong's voice chimed in, sounding a bit puzzled. This brat. Why does he need such detailed coordinates for just a location? Nevertheless, he cooperated and had his subordinates send the coordinates to Su Chen. After receiving the coordinates, Su Chen asked again, "Is the deck empty?" Old Qin looked out the window of the command room and after checking around, replied, "There are a few mechas parked there." Su Chen hurriedly said, "Move those mechas away. I need the deck to be clear." Upon hearing this, both Old Qin and Zhao Yong were taken aback, exchanging glances, and were quite puzzled about why Su Chen would make such a request. However, they have always trusted Su Chen. Since he said so, there must be a reason for it. Therefore, they obediently followed his orders and quickly arranged for people to move all the mechas off the deck, ensuring it was completely clear. With the deck now empty, Elder Qin picked up the phone and asked Su Chen, "How long do you think it will take for you to arrive?" At that moment, Su Chen was already inside the space mecha, carefully placing the manufactured space jump engine into the modified mecha cabin. While making the final preparations, he pressed a button. Instantly, energy ripples began to form around the space jump engine, spreading out in waves. At that moment, the surrounding space seemed to twist, creating a strange phenomenon. Su Chen's voice gradually echoed, 5. Elder Qin heard this on the other end of the line and instinctively nodded, thinking to himself, 5 minutes? That's quite fast. How does he do it? Soon after, Su Chen's voice continued, 4. Elder Qin was momentarily stunned, pondering, 5 minutes, or 4? What does that even mean? Su Chen, still calm and collected, continued the countdown. 3. Elder Qin and Zhao Yong were completely bewildered, exchanging puzzled glances, utterly confused about what Su Chen was doing. Meanwhile, Su Chen's voice continued, 2. 1. As Su Chen finished the countdown, the already distorted space seemed to be pulled by an even stronger force, shaking violently. The twisted space morphed into a massive black hole. The black hole was pitch black, as if possessing endless suction, and it instantly swallowed the entire space mecha that Su Chen was in. Immediately after, Elder Qin's phone suddenly lost signal, and a busy tone rang out. Looking at his phone with no signal, Elder Qin scratched his head in confusion, feeling increasingly strange about the situation. At that moment, Zhao Yong's gaze happened to fall on the deck above. He suddenly noticed that the space above the deck also seemed to be distorting. Thinking it might be an illusion, he was about to rub his eyes to see if he was mistaken when, in the next second, the space twisted sharply, and a black hole appeared and disappeared in an instant. Following that, a space mecha suddenly materialized out of thin air on the deck. The scene was truly shocking. Zhao Yong was stunned by what he saw, not knowing what to say for a moment. He stood there in shock, eyes wide open, and a face full of disbelief. Quickly coming to his senses, he tugged at Elder Qin's sleeve, anxiously gesturing for him to look outside, as if to say, "Old Qin, you have to see this. It's unbelievable." Old Qin was still puzzled about why the call suddenly dropped. He was about to call Su Chen back to ask about the situation when Zhao Yong kept tugging at his clothes. Slightly impatient, he said, "Old Zhao, stop messing around for now. I need to ask Su Chen when he will arrive." With that, he picked up the phone again, ready to dial. Just then, as soon as the call connected, Old Qin hurriedly asked, "What happened? Why did the call drop? When will you arrive? I'll have someone prepare a few dishes, and we can chat while we eat. There's also another guest waiting." Su Chen's voice came through the phone, "Old Qin, I'm already here." Old Qin was taken aback, his eyes wide in disbelief as he said, "Here? How did you get here so quickly?" At that moment, Zhao Yong's voice echoed with shock and excitement, "Old Qin, look on the deck." Old Qin instinctively turned to look where Zhao Yong was pointing and saw a mech parked on the deck. He subconsciously remarked, "Why is there still a mech on the deck?" However, the mech's hatch slowly opened, and Su Chen, holding the phone, casually walked out as if it were all perfectly normal. Old Qin was completely stunned, his eyes wide with astonishment as he exclaimed, "You really arrived? How did you get here so fast?" "Oh, I see, you were near the mothership just now, right?" Old Qin thought he had found a reasonable explanation and nodded in realization. Meanwhile, Zhao Yong was so excited that his voice trembled as he pointed at the space mech and stammered, "This is unbelievable. You have no idea what I just saw? Old Qin, do you know what you missed?" Old Qin, however, was unfazed and thought Zhao Yong was overreacting. He didn't realize how shocking and incredible the earlier scene had been. Su Chen, on the other hand, walked over to the space mech, carefully checking all the data and confirming everything was normal before he felt completely at ease. It seemed that this experiment was a great success. He then walked towards Old Qin and Zhao Yong. Just as Old Qin was about to say something, Zhao Yong jumped in first. He excitedly grabbed Su Chen's hand, pointed at the space mech, and stuttered, "Xiao Su, just now, you arrived in an instant. How did you do that? Is this what you've been researching?" Su Chen smiled and reassured him, "Old Zhao, we'll talk about that later. Let us discuss the main business first." Old Qin was still unaware of what Zhao Yong was referring to and didn't pay much attention to it. He simply led Su Chen into the central reception hall of the aerospace mothership, preparing to discuss serious matters. After all, there were important issues to deliberate. But Zhao Yong remained lost in the shock of what he had just witnessed. Once they were all seated in the reception hall, Old Qin finally began to speak slowly about the purpose of Su Chen's visit. He first detailed the global automotive layout of the Dragon Nation to Su Chen. Nowadays, with the strong promotion of the Eternal Day plan, the replacement of traditional fuel vehicles by new energy vehicles has become an unstoppable trend. After all, even if the future energy crisis is resolved, fuel prices will never be able to compete with the current low electricity prices. Therefore, in the long run, the future automotive market will surely belong to new energy vehicles. The Dragon Nation had already keenly realized this, and even before the announcement of the Eternal Day plan, it had begun to make careful arrangements globally. The Dragon Nation's own brand of cars, with their high cost-performance ratio, have been making significant strides, sweeping through automotive sales markets in various countries and achieving remarkable results. Currently, the market share of Dragon Nation cars globally has reached a historic high, and even some previously lesser-known car brands have seen their sales and market share surpass those of established automotive industries. The impressive achievements of Dragon Nation cars can be attributed to their early layout and the support of the Eternal Day plan. However, new developments have emerged. Those established automotive brands, seeing their market shares being taken away by the Dragon Nation, have become anxious and started to change their sales strategies. They no longer maintain their previous high and mighty stance. Instead, they have begun to compete with Dragon Nation cars on price, trying to reclaim their lost market. As a result, the price advantage that Dragon Nation cars relied on to reap initial benefits is gradually diminishing, particularly in some countries. Significant investments in automotive technology research and development have led to the emergence of advanced performance vehicles, making the original advantages of Dragon Nation cars less obvious. This is why Elder Qin urgently sought out Su Chen, hoping he could help boost the domestic automotive sector by leveraging his exceptional wisdom and strong research capabilities to enhance the technological content of domestic cars, thereby further improving their competitiveness. Initially, Su Chen was quite curious, wondering what important matter Elder Qin wanted to discuss. However, upon learning the situation, he felt much more relaxed. Elder Qin was worried that this matter might affect Su Chen's ongoing important research, as the projects he usually worked on were crucial to the nation's core competitiveness. Nevertheless, this issue was indeed significant and could not be underestimated. However, Su Chen was unconcerned. In his view, enhancing the technological content of cars was too simple for him. With just a little effort, he could easily maximize the technological features of the vehicles. Of course, it was essential to maintain cost-effectiveness as well, as price is a critical factor in market competition. He already had some preliminary ideas in mind and was preparing to share them with Elder Qin. Just then, Elder Qin waved his hand and smiled, saying, "You don't need to explain to us. We don't understand these things. However, we found someone who does." With that, Elder Qin signaled his subordinate to bring over Mr. Lei. Shortly after, a middle-aged man walked in. He was of medium height, dressed in a black jacket paired with blue jeans, and wore a faint smile, looking particularly energetic and capable. As soon as he entered, he warmly greeted everyone with a friendly demeanor that made people feel comfortable. As soon as Su Chen saw this person, he was stunned. Wow, it's Lei Busi, Jungu. The person was none other than the founder of XME, known as Lei Busi. Su Chen was taken aback. Wasn't he Lei Busi known for making smartphones? Did he understand cars too? However, he quickly recalled that before his journey to this world, Lei Busi had indeed developed a car, and the online reviews for that vehicle were quite favorable. Su Chen held a great deal of respect for this legendary figure in the business world, akin to a protagonist in a popular novel. After all, he had made impressive achievements in the tech industry. Lei Busi, without any airs about him, proactively extended his hand to Su Chen and warmly said, "I heard you are Elder Qin and Elder Zhao's recommended engineer. Hello, Mr. Su." Su Chen also extended his hand, smiling politely and calmly. "Hello, Mr. Lei." Lei Busi, who had accomplished much at a young age, did not underestimate Su Chen, who appeared to be quite young, especially since he was recommended by Elder Qin and Elder Zhao. On the contrary, he had high hopes for Su Chen, thinking that perhaps this Mr. Su could bring unexpected surprises. After everyone took their seats again, Lei Busi took the lead and said, "Mr. Su, I believe Elder Qin and Elder Zhao have already informed you of our purpose for finding you. We feel a great responsibility that the nation has chosen us among many car brands and entrusted us with an important task. However, we are currently facing quite a significant challenge." Su Chen was not particularly surprised. After all, the company founded by Lei Busi, XME, was officially named Kyoto XME, and being named after Kyoto was no trivial matter. This indicated the recognition and importance of this company at the national level. Not just any car brand could carry the name Kyoto. Lei Busi continued, "We had made prior arrangements according to the nation's plan, and initially, everything went quite smoothly, with positive market feedback. However, the current issue is that our products only have a price advantage, and with the ongoing price wars from other brands, this advantage is gradually disappearing. We urgently need some new technology to enhance our product competitiveness. At the same time, we must also consider cost effectiveness. I know this is quite challenging. Before Lei Busi finished speaking, Su Chun waved his hand and said, "Actually, it's quite simple." Lei Bus was slightly taken aback, clearly not expecting Su Chun to say that. He squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, "Please share your thoughts." As he spoke, he placed his hands neatly on his legs, looking serious and ready to listen to Su Chen's ideas. Su Chen cleared his throat and said logically, "Let us start from the pain points of energy vehicles. I'll list two simple ones. The first is the slow charging issue. Currently, electric vehicles on the market take a considerable amount of time to charge, which is a significant gap compared to traditional vehicles. The second is the insufficient range per unit of energy. Many cars can't go far on a full charge before needing to recharge again, which is quite a headache. Alright, let us mention another issue. The batteries can easily malfunction. Once the battery fails, the entire vehicle is practically rendered useless, and the repair costs can be exorbitant. To address these three problems, I can transfer some technologies from exoskeletons to vehicles. The expected outcome is that within 10 seconds, the car battery can be fully charged. And a fully charged battery would allow the car to run for at least 2,000 kilometers, significantly enhancing its range. Additionally, using special materials for the batteries would ensure they remain intact even in the event of an explosion. Oh, and we must also consider the vehicle's safety. We should improve the overall framework so that its safety is comparable to that of a tank. No, it should at least surpass a tank's safety standards. After Su Chen finished sharing his thoughts, Lei Bus was left utterly astonished. His eyes widened as he listened to Su Chen's words, his face reflecting disbelief and shock. He had personally been involved in car manufacturing and knew just how challenging it would be to achieve what Su Chen was proposing. These were indeed problems that the automotive industry had long sought to solve but found difficult to overcome. He instinctively glanced at Elder Qin and Elder Zhao, only to find them both calm, as if Su Chen's statements were trivial matters to them, which further shocked Lei Bus. He took another careful look at Su Chen, thinking that he might have underestimated him. At the same time, he couldn't help but speculate about Su Chen's identity. After pondering for a long time, he couldn't come up with a clear idea, feeling that Su Chen was far too mysterious and surely had an extraordinary background and abilities. Elder Qin and Elder Zhao exchanged glances and smiled at each other. Elder Qin then said, "I knew it was a good idea to invite Su Chen here." Elder Zhao chimed in. As soon as he mentioned exoskeleton technology, I guessed his thoughts. The technological content of exoskeletons is undoubtedly high, and their cost-effectiveness is almost frightening. With this, we won't have to worry anymore. Elder Zhao paused, jokingly adding, "Elder Qin, why don't we just make exoskeletons available to the public? They aren't even more expensive than a car." Elder Qin immediately shot a glare at Elder Zhao, pretending to be angry, and said, "Stop joking. Is that even feasible?" Upon seeing this, Zhao Lao chuckled and quickly said, "Just kidding, just kidding." Lei Busi, who was listening to their conversation from the side, was utterly confused. He couldn't comprehend what they were talking about. His mind was still preoccupied with the truth of Su Chen's words, as they sounded incredibly unbelievable, and he hadn't figured it out yet. At that moment, Su Chen's voice rang out again, asking, "Mr. Lei, what do you think of the ideas I just mentioned?" Lei Busi snapped back to reality and hurriedly responded, "I think they are great, but will there be any difficulties in implementing them?" He still had some doubts. Although the ideas sounded impressive, the actual manufacturing would undoubtedly be quite challenging. Su Chen smiled and replied, "What difficulties could there be? I'll try to make one in a couple of days, and then we'll know." Lei Busi was still a bit dazed upon hearing Su Chen's words. He nodded involuntarily. After finalizing the plan, they all got up to see Lei Busi off. After all, they had discussed everything necessary, and now they just needed to wait for the actual results. Elder Qin looked at Su Chen and asked with concern, "Xiao Chun, is 2 days too tight?" He was still a bit worried that Su Chen was rushing. Su Chen, however, nonchalantly replied, "What's the big deal? It's just transferring a small percentage of the technology from the individual combat mech to the vehicle. It's an easy task." With Su Chen's assurance, Elder Qin and the others felt much more at ease. Subsequently, Su Chen inquired if there were any other matters to discuss. Elder Qin thought for a moment and said, "That is all for now." However, Zhao Lao hesitated, wanting to say something but held back for a moment before finally asking, "I'm still curious about the miraculous display you just showed with the space mech. What was that about, Xiao Chen?" He couldn't shake off the memory of that astonishing scene. His curiosity was piqued. Su Chen calmly smiled and said, "I was just about to tell you about that. Captain Zhao." Chapter 290. You really are a genius. Zhao Yong has finally realized his wish and taken up the position of captain of the aerospace mothership. At this moment, in the central reception hall of the mothership, Su Chen mysteriously said to Zhao Yong, "What you just witnessed as a miracle is actually a new type of engine device I developed." His eyes gleamed with a hint of pride and excitement, as it represented a month and a half of his hard work and achievements. However, currently, its application was limited to the space mechs and couldn't be utilized in more areas yet. Su Chen slightly furrowed his brows, seemingly dissatisfied with this limitation. But soon, determination ignited in his gaze as he continued. "So this time, I plan to thoroughly modify the aerospace mothership and equip it with this engine. Then, the mothership will also be able to perform that miraculous operation." Just thinking about that scene is overwhelming. Upon hearing this, Zhao Yong was instantly stunned, standing there as if he had been hit by a spell, completely frozen in place. However, he quickly recalled that astonishing scene from earlier. The space mech had seemingly traversed time and space, appearing on the deck of the aerospace aircraft carrier in the blink of an eye. That kind of instantaneous movement beyond common sense was truly incredible. Now, if this amazing engine could be equipped on the aerospace aircraft carrier, wouldn't that add an immensely powerful function to it? Once this function was realized, the status of the aerospace aircraft carrier in the world and even the entire universe would undergo a dramatic change. The more Zhao Yong thought about it, the more excited he became, and his expression grew increasingly enthusiastic. He nodded repeatedly and agreed without hesitation. Great. Feel free to make any modifications. Whatever you need. Just let us know. We will do our best to meet all your requirements. As long as we can implement this technology, that would be fantastic. Xiao Chun, you really are a genius. His voice trembled slightly with excitement, as if he could already envision the aerospace aircraft carrier soaring through the universe, shining brilliantly one day. On the side, Elder Qin looked somewhat confused. He first glanced at Elder Zhao with a frown, then turned to look at Su Chun, his eyes filled with perplexity. What are you two talking about? Since the beginning, you've been going on about miracles, but I haven't seen anything. Where are these miracles? Unable to hold back, he furrowed his brow, feeling a bit displeased, as if he were isolated from their conversation. Elder Zhao and Su Chun exchanged a glance, both seeing an unspoken understanding in each other's eyes. Their lips involuntarily curled into a meaningful smile. This smile only made Elder Qin more confused. He couldn't help but raise his voice, saying, "Why aren't you two talking? Come on, tell me. Are you trying to keep me in suspense? That is not fair." Seeing this, Su Chun grinned mischievously and said to Elder Zhao, "Let us say this. I'll head back to the lab first to sort out the matters with the vehicle, and then I'll start modifying the engine equipment." With that, he turned decisively and walked toward the center deck without looking back. His steps were particularly firm, as if he couldn't wait to start the upcoming work. Elder Zhao stood in place, his gaze following Su Chen's figure, his eyes sparkling with anticipation, as if Su Chen's back carried endless hope. Elder Qin, on the other hand, was even more irritated. He puffed out his cheeks and thought, "This brat is deliberately ignoring me, huh? Only he would dare to treat me this way." The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became, and he turned to Zhao Yong, saying irritably, "Old Zhao, you'd better tell me what's going on. What's this miracle you're talking about?" Elder Zhao simply smiled calmly, a hint of smugness in his expression, and said leisurely, "I want to tell you. Who told you not to see it back then? You said I was rambling, huh? Well, I'm not telling you. You can guess slowly." His demeanor only served to infuriate Elder Qin further. Seeing this, the old man Qin snorted coldly and said somewhat sulkily, "If you don't want to say it, then forget it. I'm not a child anymore. You two are just deliberately keeping me in suspense. There's probably nothing remarkable at all. All right, I should be heading back." As he spoke, he gestured for Zhao Yong to make way for him, preparing to leave. However, at that moment, he noticed that Zhao Yong completely ignored him and was instead focused on Su Chen's figure on the deck, looking as if he was afraid of missing something important. Old man Qin was taken aback and couldn't help but pat Zhao Yong on the shoulder, saying, "Old Zhao, what are you looking at? Are you sending off little Chun with your eyes?" He then followed Zhao Yong's gaze and joined him in watching Su Chen leave. However, what they didn't expect was that when Su Chen entered the cockpit, he did not start the mecha as usual. This unusual behavior made old man Qin feel a twinge of suspicion, secretly pondering, what is this kid up to now? Meanwhile, Zhao Yong's expression began to grow more excited, and his anticipation increased. He vaguely guessed that Su Chen might be about to unveil something extraordinary again. Soon, a shocking scene reappeared. The space around the mecha seemed to be stirred by an invisible hand, beginning to twist violently. The once calm space transformed into a lake disturbed by a giant rock, creating layers of strange ripples. Moreover, these ripples continued to expand and deform, emanating a mysterious and powerful aura. Old man Qin's eyes widened in disbelief. He thought he was hallucinating. He instinctively rubbed his eyes and blinked hard, realizing that the scene before him did not disappear but continued to unfold. The twisting of space intensified, and then, a massive black hole suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The black hole was pitch black, seemingly possessing endless gravitational pull, like a giant mouth in the universe, instantly swallowing the entire mecha. In the next moment, Su Chun and the mecha vanished as if they had never been there, leaving only the originally distorted space slowly returning to normal, as if everything had just been a brief and fantastical dream. Seeing this, old man Qin stood frozen in place, as if struck by lightning, unable to regain his senses for a long time. It was as if he had witnessed the most shocking scene of his life. His mind blank, completely stunned by this moment that transcended understanding. Chapter 291, No One Changes. Zhao Yong couldn't help but exclaim, "That's amazing. Little Chun has invented something incredible again. This kid is really getting more impressive." As he spoke, he turned to look at old man Qin, only to find him standing there wide-eyed and speechless, as if he were in a trance. Zhao Yong quickly waved his hand in front of old man Qin's eyes and asked with concern, Old Qin, are you all right?" Old Qin slowly regained his senses, staring blankly at old Zhao. His lips parted slightly, and his voice trembled with shock as he stammered, Is this the miracle you were talking about?" Seeing this, old Zhao grinned, a hint of pride in his smile, and said, "You see, you used to think we were just talking nonsense. But now you must believe it, right?" Haha. Old Qin truly witnessed it this time. This scene not only showcased a miraculous phenomenon, but also delivered a strong shock to his heart. He never expected that a perfectly functioning mech could vanish into thin air. It completely overturned his previous understanding of science and the world. Now, Old Qin finally understood why Su Chun could instantly appear on the deck. It wasn't that he was nearby, but rather he had invented such an incredible technology that allowed the space mech to reach the mothership in an instant. Soon, Old Qin recalled what Su Chun had said earlier about applying this technology to the mothership. He thought to himself, does this mean that in the future, the mothership could instantly travel from one place to another? This is simply too powerful, so powerful that words can't even describe it. The more Old Qin thought about it, the more excited he became, feeling his heart race uncontrollably. Images of the mothership freely traversing the cosmos with this technology kept flashing in his mind. Old Qin decided that he could not wait any longer. He needed to apply this technology immediately. Without hesitation, he said, let's delay the production of the new concept car and focus on applying this technology to the mothership. This matter is too important to be postponed. As he spoke, he prepared to contact Su Chun to prioritize this more critical task. Old Zhao was taken aback by Old Qin's sudden decision. He knew very well that Su Chun's technology had completely conquered Old Qin. It even made Old Qin overly excited. He was willing to put aside the originally important car project for this. Old Qin didn't care about Old Zhao's reaction. He simply picked up the phone and quickly dialed Su Chen's number. When the call connected, Su Chen's voice came through. Old Qin, do you have any instructions? Old Qin initially wanted to directly express his recent decision, but when the words reached his lips, he hesitated and instead asked, Xiao Chun, where are you now? I saw you suddenly disappear earlier. Su Chun chuckled on the other end of the line, and his laughter conveyed a sense of ease and confidence. Old Qin, did you see the miracle I showed you? I'm already at the Kyoto Research Institute. Upon hearing this, Old Qin, although he had already vaguely guessed the situation, was still taken aback when Su Chun clearly stated it. He thought to himself, it's at least 2,000 kilometers from here to Kyoto, and this kid has instantaneously arrived. This is truly a miracle. Old Qin couldn't help but marvel again in his heart. However, he quickly regained his composure and got down to business, eagerly asking, Xiao Chun, you just mentioned applying this technology to the spacecraft carrier. Does that mean, if successful, our spacecraft carrier will be able to reach any location within the blue planet instantly? Su Chun calmly smiled on the other end of the call and replied, that's a conservative estimate. Upon hearing this, Elder Qin became puzzled and couldn't help but ask, what do you mean by conservative estimate? Su Chun patiently explained, I'm still not certain about the range of this spatial leap. Currently, it does seem possible to instantly reach anywhere within the galaxy of the blue planet. But it's also possible that further research and improvements could allow us to reach even farther places, which is why I say it's a conservative estimate. Elder Qin became even more excited upon hearing this, repeatedly saying, great, great. You've invented such an amazing technology and didn't even tell me. You really make me both angry and happy. Although he said he was angry, his tone was filled with joy and admiration for Su Chun. Su Chun quickly smiled and reassured him, don't be angry, Elder Qin. Once I finish improving this technology, I'll take you on a tour of the universe so you can truly experience the wonders of it. Upon hearing this, Elder Qin immediately calmed down, his eyes squinting with laughter as he happily said, now that's more like it, huh? But he quickly remembered the serious matter and said, by the way, such an impressive technology must be applied to the spacecraft carrier as soon as possible. Let's put the car project on hold for now. Su Chun paused for a moment on the other end and then said, that's completely unnecessary, Elder Qin. The modification work for the car can be completed in 2 days at most and won't affect the spacecraft carrier's modifications. Besides, I think the car project is quite important as it relates to our positioning in the global automotive industry. Upon hearing this, Elder Qin, who had originally been anxious, suddenly relaxed. If it had been someone else saying this, he definitely wouldn't have believed it, thinking, how can you build an advanced new car in 2 days? That's impossible. But since it came from Su Chun, Elder Qin had complete trust in him, so he believed it without hesitation. Moreover, Su Chen's words dispelled his earlier thought of delaying the car manufacturing. After hanging up, Elder Qin stood there, unconsciously imagining the scene of the spacecraft carrier moving freely within the galaxy of the blue planet. The image was simply magnificent and incredibly alluring. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Feeling as if the youthful passion within him had been ignited, he started to boil over uncontrollably, as if he had returned to his younger days, filled with energy and drive. After a long while, Elder Qin slowly came back to his senses, turned to look at Elder Zhao, who was also lost in thoughts about the future, grinned, and said in a teasing tone, well, Elder Zhao, how about we switch roles? I'll be the captain. At this moment, Zhao Lao also came to his senses. He widened his eyes, instinctively took a half step back, and without a second thought, he resolutely said, no switch. Absolutely no switch. I wouldn't even switch if the top leader offered. His firm demeanor made it seem as if the position of captain was incredibly important to him, and no one could take it away from him. This made Qin Lao burst into laughter. For a time, the reception area of the aerospace mothership was filled with their joyful banter. Chapter 292. Did you see that pillar? Crash into it. Shortly after Su Chun returned, Raybus promptly sent over a brand new X-Meter vehicle for Su Chun to begin his modification work. The car gleamed in the sunlight with its unique metallic luster, and its design aligned perfectly with the aesthetics of young people. Su Chun thought it looked great. Upon receiving the car, he quickly took out a notebook, his focused expression suggesting that the entire world had narrowed down to just him and the vehicle before him. His pen moved swiftly across the pages, sketching and writing as his thoughts galloped like wild horses across the plains of technology and innovation. Before long, a new conceptual vehicle sketch, filled with many of his ideas, sprang to life on the paper. Following this meticulously designed sketch, Su Chun immediately began the modification work. His movements were skilled and precise, each operation akin to a delicate surgical procedure, deeply optimizing and upgrading various components of the car. Most of the features on the new conceptual vehicle were simplified versions of functionalities found in individual combat mechs, essentially a stripped-down version. Nevertheless, even so, these features were groundbreaking in the automotive field and represented the most advanced existence, enough to make the entire automotive industry take notice. With Su Chun's dedicated effort over a solid 2 days of relentless work, he successfully completed the modifications on the new conceptual vehicle. This achievement aligned closely with the time frame he initially planned. Without hesitation, Su Chun called Raybus. "Mr. Raybus, are you busy right now? If not, come over to test the modified vehicle." At that moment, inside the X-Meter company, Raybus had just finished a long and intense meeting, still immersed in the various discussions from it. When he suddenly received Su Chun's call, he was momentarily taken aback, seemingly still enveloped in the atmosphere of the meeting. However, as soon as he understood Su Chun's words, he was visibly shocked. Clearly, he was deeply impressed by Su Chun's astonishing speed of modification. "Mr. Su, are you saying that the new conceptual vehicle has already been modified? In just 2 days, all the functionalities we discussed have been realized?" Raybus's voice was filled with disbelief. He simply couldn't imagine that such a complex and innovative modification could be completed in just 2 days. Su Chun lightly touched his nose and replied with a hint of confidence, something like that. "If you have time, come over, and I'll send you the address. After finishing this project, I have other things to do." Upon hearing this, Raybus quickly nodded eagerly and said, "Great, we'll head over right away." After hanging up the phone, Raybus saw the address sent by Su Chun and felt a mix of anticipation and curiosity. He initially thought about returning to the meeting room to bring a few subordinates along, as it seemed more appropriate to have more witnesses for such an important matter. However, after a brief moment of contemplation, he ultimately decided to drive there alone. When Raybus arrived at the destination according to the address, he found it to be an expansive and empty area. The surroundings looked somewhat desolate, with only a few resilient weeds swaying in the wind. The space was large enough to accommodate any unexpected test results. It appeared to be a site specifically designed for testing large, high-speed, or impactful objects. With a steel pole in the middle. At this moment, Su Chun was already quietly standing in the open area. Behind him was a car completely covered by a black cloth. Raybus immediately noticed the covered vehicle and was filled with excitement. He couldn't wait to get out of his car and nearly jogged over to Su Chun, enthusiastically extending his hand for a handshake. The strength of their handshake seemed to convey his deep excitement and admiration. "Mr. Su, your modification speed is simply lightning fast. I'm really curious about which school you graduated from. You are truly talented at such a young age." Receiving such high praise from Raybus was undoubtedly a significant honor for Su Chun. He smiled and replied, "I'm still in school." Raybus appeared somewhat surprised by this answer, widening his eyes slightly as he said, "You're still a student. Do you have any thoughts about developing your career with our company after graduation?" There was a glimmer of expectation and desire in Raybus's gaze. Hearing this, Su Chun couldn't help but laugh. "Whether I want to or not isn't really important. The key is that the authorities have to agree." He didn't directly respond to Raybus's invitation. "Let's talk about this after I graduate from university. For now, let's take a look at the car." With that, Su Chun confidently walked over to the car covered in black cloth, firmly grasped a corner of the cloth, and with a swift pull, dramatically unveiled the true appearance of the vehicle underneath. In an instant, Raybus's eyes were filled with anticipation. His gaze fixed on the car as if he wanted to see every detail. However, when his eyes finally landed on the modified vehicle, a look of confusion appeared on his face. The corners of his mouth even twitched slightly, filled with doubt. He turned to Su Chun, puzzled, and asked, "Mr. Su, forgive my lack of insight, but where exactly is the modification on this car? It looks identical to the one I delivered to you a couple of days ago." I have to say, Raybus's temperament is indeed quite good, and he is very patient. If it were someone else in this situation, they would probably think they were being played. After all, it seems almost impossible to achieve those exaggerated features in just 2 days. Now seeing this car that looks exactly the same as before, anyone else might have already lost their temper. But Raybus chose to trust Su Chun. After a brief moment of confusion, he tentatively asked, "Is it that the exterior hasn't changed, but rather the internal components have been modified?" Su Chun smiled calmly and nodded, saying, "That's right. I really like the design of this car, so I didn't change its appearance." However, as he spoke, he gently tapped on the shell of the new concept car, producing a crisp sound. Not only have the internal components been modified, but the shell has also been replaced with more stable and impact-resistant materials. "Lei, come on in and give it a try." Su Chun elegantly opened the car door and gestured invitingly to Raybus. The fire of anticipation ignited in Lei Bu's heart once again. Gratefully, he thanked Su Chun and carefully took his seat in the driver's position. However, the moment he made contact with the seat, he immediately felt something unusual. To his surprise, he noticed that the seat behind him was subtly moving, as if it had a life of its own. The seat can move? Lei Bu was startled. He even thought he had accidentally sat on someone, feeling a rush of panic. He quickly turned his head, anxiously looking at the seat, trying to figure out what was happening. Just then, Su Chen's calm and confident voice reached his ears. Do you feel the seat moving? Don't panic. This is actually a special memory material that can automatically adjust the shape of the seat according to the driver's body proportions, achieving the most comfortable driving state. Only then did Lei Bu realize that, just as Su Chun had said, the seat began to change slowly after this memory material quickly gathered his body data. It felt like a pair of gentle yet strong hands were softly supporting him, wrapping around his body. The snugness and comfort made him feel as if he were nestled in a soft sponge, providing an extreme level of comfort. In this state of extreme comfort, he found himself feeling a bit drowsy, as if the whole world had become quiet and peaceful, and he just wanted to immerse himself in this moment of tranquility. However, just as he started to drift into that slight drowsiness, something miraculous happened again. The originally soft and comfortable seat suddenly became hard. The strong sensation felt like someone gently tapping him on the shoulder, instantly waking him up and banishing his drowsiness. Seeing Lei Bu's reaction, Su Chun grinned and said, "Feeling sleepy, Lei? This seat is not meant for sleeping. When a person feels drowsy, their body undergoes a series of subtle changes. And this memory material can keenly and accurately capture these changes, then quickly respond to alert the driver to avoid dozing off." Lei Bus was filled with surprise and couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, Mr. Su. No, I should call you Teacher Su. You are truly our mentor on the road of automobile manufacturing. I am very curious about how you achieved such an intelligent function. It's simply incredible." In Lei Bus's view, this small seat function had already far exceeded his expectations. He knew that just this unique feature could give the brand a powerful market competitiveness, making it stand out among numerous automobile brands. However, Su Chun waved his hand dismissively and said, "This is nothing. Compared to this feature, the car's range, charging speed, and crash resistance are where its true power lies." As he spoke, Su Chun pointed with his finger toward a pillar not far ahead in the venue and said to Lei Bus, "Mr. Lei, do you see that pillar?" Lei Bus looked in the direction Su Chun was pointing, paused for a moment, and then replied, "I see it. Are we going to go around it?" "No." Su Chun grinned and said, "Crash into it." Chapter 293. You want to modify the car? Are you making a racing car? Huh. Upon hearing this, Lei Bus was instantly stunned, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Teacher Su, isn't this too dangerous? We always use dummies for vehicle testing." In Lei Bus's understanding, directly driving the car into a pillar was simply a crazy act. A slight misstep could lead to severe accidents. He couldn't comprehend why Su Chun would make such a request. Su Chun, however, remained calm and stated, "That's because you lack absolute confidence in your product's performance. As for me, I have great confidence in the car I've modified. What? If you're afraid, let me drive, and you get out." Su Chun's tone was filled with determination and confidence. His eyes revealed an unwavering belief in his technology, as if he viewed the car as an indestructible artifact, with any challenge being insignificant. Hearing Su Chun's words, Lei Bus felt a surge of inexplicable courage. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his expression suddenly becoming serious and resolute. Then he nodded solemnly and said, "All right, since Teacher Su is so confident, I'll accompany you." After taking a deep breath, Lei Bus slowly started the car, genuinely preparing to crash into the pillar. However, just as the car was about to move, Su Chun quickly reached out to stop him. Su Chun burst into laughter, his voice echoing in the open space, filled with teasing and mockery. "Ha, Mr. Lei, you are really brave." Lei Bus was taken aback by Su Chun's sudden action. Looking at him in confusion, Su Chun pushed open the car door and quickly walked to the driver's side, gently tapping on the window with a smile. "Get out of the car, you're not afraid of dying, but I am." Lei Bus suddenly realized that Su Chun had just been joking with him. He felt a bit speechless, but at the same time, he breathed a sigh of relief, finding Su Chun's playfulness both amusing and infuriating. Lei Bus helplessly opened the car door and stepped out from the driver's seat. Su Chun closed the car door, and Lei Bus stood by, watching as Su Chun prepared to continue testing the car's collision resistance. He looked around but didn't see any equipment for testing this feature. Just as he was wondering how Su Chun was going to proceed, he suddenly heard Su Chun loudly say to the car, "Xiao AI, enter developer mode." Immediately, a mechanical synthetic voice, resembling that of a woman, echoed in the air. "Engineer identity confirmed." Su Chun replied without hesitation. "Su Chun, engineer confirmed, proceeding with voice recognition. Recognition successful. Proceeding with facial recognition. Recognition successful. Developer mode successfully activated. Greetings, esteemed developer. How can I assist you?" Su Chun calmly said, "I want to test the vehicle's collision performance. Drive towards the column in front." Xiao AI understands. Preparing to initiate the test. Please move outside the testing range, at least 100 meters away. The voice from Xiao AI indicated it was referring to Lei Bus, who quickly followed Su Chun back. His face filled with shock. He exclaimed, "Wow, Teacher Su, is this the car's built-in artificial intelligence? It's so advanced. Compared to it, our Xiao AI seems like a fool." This was the AI from the individual combat mech that Su Chun had transferred to the car. Of course, it was just a simplified version, with performance only a fraction of that of the individual combat mech. Yet, even so, its performance still amazed Lei Bus. Then, the test officially began. The car's engine emitted a deep and powerful roar, resembling a giant beast awakening, as the tires screeched against the ground. The entire vehicle was like a bull poised to charge, filled with strength and passion. Before Lei Bus and Su Chun could react, the new concept car shot forward like a bolt of lightning, accelerating to 100 kilometers per hour in just 0.5 seconds. The speed was so dazzling that it felt as if the car was a rocket, hurtling towards the column ahead. Lei Bus's eyes widened, instinctively taking a half step back, his heart racing with tension and fear, shouting, "It's over! It's over! Something's going to happen!" At such a speed, crashing into the column would surely total the car. In his understanding, no vehicle could withstand such a high-speed impact, and it would inevitably cause severe damage or even complete destruction. An explosion was even possible. However, what happened next left him speechless, unable to believe his eyes. As the new concept car made contact with the pillar, the body of the car did not shatter as he had imagined. Instead, it acted like an incredibly hard projectile, instantly sending the solid iron pillar flying. The pillar arced through the air before landing heavily on the ground with a dull thud. What was even more astonishing was that the exterior of the new concept car showed no signs of dents at all, as if it had merely brushed against the pillar rather than endured a violent collision. "Incredible!" he exclaimed in awe. After completing the test, the new concept car elegantly spun around like a graceful dancer before coming to a steady stop in front of them, perfectly demonstrating the sophistication and precision of autonomous driving technology. He couldn't wait to circle around the new concept car, meticulously examining every detail inside and out. Yet to his astonishment, he found no issues whatsoever. It was as if the intense collision had never occurred. With a look of shock on his face, he turned to his companion, his voice trembling with excitement. "Teacher Su, you've truly opened my eyes. What material is the shell made of?" Given the magnitude of the impact, even if the car wasn't totaled, it shouldn't be unscathed. But this car has no damage at all. It's simply a miracle. Just this crash resistance alone makes this car worth $1 million. No, it could even be $10 million. In his eyes, such outstanding crash performance completely exceeded his understanding of automotive materials and structures. He knew that once this technology was applied to car production, it would revolutionize the entire automotive industry. Yet, Teacher Su merely smiled slightly and said, "This is just the beginning. Come look at the battery level." Although he was unsure why Teacher Su wanted him to check the battery level, he trusted her and complied. When he saw that the battery was fully charged, reading 100, his confusion deepened. Then, Teacher Su instructed him to step outside the testing area and issued a new command to the new concept car. "Push the speed to the limit. I want to test the driving range with 1% battery." The mechanical voice of the assistant chimed in again. "Received." As they exited the testing area, the vehicle began its autonomous test. The car started up again, the roar of the engine breaking the silence, and the speed rapidly increased, soon reaching its maximum velocity. The speed was so fast it was like a flash of lightning, leaving onlookers in awe. At this point, his shock had escalated beyond mere astonishment. His voice trembled with extreme amazement. "Teacher Su, when you said you were modifying the car, you actually turned it into a racing car." Chapter 294. Whose car reaches 3 times the speed of sound? The new concept vehicle launched forward like an arrow released from a bow, instantly transforming into a blurred shadow. The engine roared, creating a howling wind. The airflow outside rolled and surged, resembling a dreamy veil. Inside the car, the view from the windows was a blur of lights. From above, it looked like a shooting star, gracefully turning as it sped along in one seamless motion. The air was compressed, forming shockwaves that affected the surrounding vegetation and birds. Each component operated at high speed in perfect harmony, stabilizing as it surged towards its speed limit, showcasing mechanical aesthetics and a sense of power. This lightning-fast scene truly startled the observer. The speed was so fast it felt like a flash of lightning, leaving only a fleeting impression. If it were called a racing car, there would be no doubt about it. After all, such astonishing speed could only be rivaled by top-tier racing cars designed specifically for the track. Watching the new concept vehicle display such abundant power, rivaling even those fuel cars known for their strong performance, the observer's sense of wonder deepened. He mused internally that with such powerful performance, the car's engine must be top-notch. It could probably compare to the engines of those racing cars that cost millions. The manufacturing cost must not be cheap. Oh dear. This goes against our original intention of creating cost-effective vehicles. The observer pondered, realizing that if the cost were too high, it would be difficult to maintain a price advantage in the market. Yet, the outstanding performance was hard to let go of. Moreover, with such strong power, it must consume more energy. He began to feel a hint of concern. At that moment, the new concept vehicle continued to race around the testing ground, showing no signs of slowing down. The engine's roar sounded like an inspiring battle song, echoing across the open space. A long time had passed since the testing began. The observer, astonished by the vehicle's sustained power, couldn't help but look at his companion with a puzzled expression, asking, "What is the battery capacity of this new concept vehicle?" As he spoke, he instinctively glanced at his watch, calculating. Hasn't an hour passed, and still not even 1% of the battery been used? This is unbelievable. His companion also felt that the testing duration was surprisingly long. After hearing the question, he calmly picked up his phone and clearly instructed, Student Xiao AI, please provide real-time testing data for the vehicle. Soon, a striking line of data appeared on the screen. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the new concept vehicle had actually traveled 3,000 kilometers. This meant that the vehicle's speed had reached 3,000 kilometers per hour. The observer, curious, leaned closer, and when his gaze fell on the data displayed on the phone screen, an indescribable look of astonishment crossed his face. His wide eyes and slightly open mouth clearly reflecting his shock. Even though he had previously trusted Su Chen's abilities to some extent, at this moment, he suddenly felt that everything was a bit too exaggerated. 3,000 kilometers per hour. To put it in perspective, the fastest recorded car on Blue Planet, the Thrust SSC, only reached a speed of 122,799 kilometers per hour, and that was achieved under specific conditions and environments, requiring significant effort to create such a speed, which is nearly impossible to replicate in daily situations. Yet, this new concept vehicle of yours can reach such terrifying speeds. This is nearly 3 times the speed of sound. This is too outrageous. Lei Bus felt that his earlier praises were still too conservative. He thought to himself, this is not a racing car. This is simply a super racing car. No, if this car had wings, it could practically become an aircraft, 3 times the speed of sound, flying faster than any plane. However, that wasn't the most mind-blowing part for Lei Bus. His gaze quickly fell on the remaining battery percentage displayed on the screen. It clearly showed 995. Lei Bus certainly knew what this meant. It indicated that in the past hour, the new concept vehicle modified by Su Chen had only consumed 0.5 of its battery, not even reaching 1%. He widened his eyes, looking at Su Chen in disbelief, trying to suppress his excitement, and asked, Su, is this data accurate? He really couldn't be sure about the battery situation, as it was simply beyond reason. However, the car's lightning-fast speed was something he had witnessed firsthand, so it had to be real. Surely, his eyes weren't failing him. Su Chen appeared calm, as if everything was within expectation, and said, I'm just doing a basic test here. Before the market launch, you can conduct a comprehensive test, and the data will be more precise then. Hearing this, Lei Bus quickly nodded, thinking that such an impressive vehicle indeed needed thorough testing. If such astonishing data could withstand repeated verification, that would be incredible. At this point, Su Chen ordered the artificial intelligence assistant of the new concept vehicle to stop. After all, who knew how long the testing would go on? The car's battery capacity was quite large. If they were to consume even 1% of the battery, it would likely take another hour. So, they decided to abandon further testing of speed and battery consumption. Next came the final testing phase, testing the charging speed. Su Chen walked steadily to the now stopped new concept vehicle, and after a series of operations, he drained the remaining battery completely. The discharging process alone took nearly half an hour, indicating that the battery capacity was indeed substantial. Once the discharging was complete, they began the charging test. Lei Bus was like a curious elementary school student, watching intently from the side, not even daring to blink, fearing he might miss any detail. Su Chen skillfully plugged the charging device into the car's charging port. Instantly, the red indicator light on the charging device lit up. Beside it, a small display screen first showed the number 3. Then, the number quickly changed to 2. After that, it turned into 1. The entire process was so fast that it was hard to react. Finally, the red light suddenly changed to green. Lei Bus noticed these changes and was filled with doubt. So he hurriedly asked, is the charging device connected successfully? Su Chen, however, remained calm and replied no, it's already fully charged. Chapter 295. The cost is only around 50 to 60,000. Upon hearing Su Chen say the car was fully charged, Lei Bus was taken aback at first, then suddenly broke into a smile. The smile was somewhat forced, clearly thinking that Su Chen's words were too unbelievable. He said, Teacher Su, don't joke around. It has only been 3 seconds, and it's fully charged? Although I'm not sure about the exact capacity of this car's battery, it can run 3,000 kilometers while only consuming 0.5% of the power. Just based on that, the battery capacity must be quite large. A battery of such capacity definitely cannot be charged so quickly. If the charging speed could really be that fast, then the advantages of gasoline vehicles would be completely gone. This is something that was unimaginable in the past. As Lei Bus spoke, he shook his head repeatedly, his expression filled with disbelief. In his mind, such a charging speed was simply against all logic. Even though Su Chen had previously created so many astonishing miracles, he still found it hard to accept this point. Seeing Lei Bus's disbelieving expression, Su Chen understood that merely speaking about it would likely not convince him. So he quietly unplugged the charging device and walked to the car, smoothly opening the door and starting the vehicle. As the car started, the intelligent display screen inside lit up. The bright screen clearly showed various data of the car, and the power status was particularly evident. Lei Bus instinctively looked over, and as soon as he did, his eyes widened in shock. The power display was already full. That glaring full charge indicator seemed to silently mock his earlier doubts. It really was fully charged. Lei Bus couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, his voice filled with astonishment. He never expected that Su Chen had truly achieved this. The charging speed was simply beyond imagination. However, Lei Bus still had some doubts, worrying that this might be a false reading. After all, this was too bizarre. What if it only showed full charge, but ran out of power after a short drive? That would be quite a joke. Su Chen seemed to see through Lei Bus's thoughts. and to completely dispel his concerns, he decided to conduct another test. Following the same testing standards as before, he let the car accelerate at that astonishing speed. Lei Bus watched intently from the side, feeling both nervous and excited, wondering what the outcome would be this time. An hour passed just like that, and Lei Bus hurried over to check the remaining battery power. To his astonishment, the remaining charge still showed 995. It was exactly the same as before, which meant it wasn't just a false reading. The car's battery was genuinely impressive. The charging speed and endurance were undeniably remarkable. It's not a false reading. Lei Bus couldn't help but exclaim again. At that moment, his gaze fell back on the car, and his expression was no longer just simple surprise, but rather a sense of awe and joy, as if he were looking at a miraculous object from a future world. This car was truly unbelievable. It could reach speeds of 3,000 kilometers per hour, travel 3,000 kilometers while consuming only 0.5 of the battery, and could be fully charged in just 3 seconds. Each of these figures was enough to drive the entire automotive industry crazy. This was exactly the dream car he had longed for. Lei Bus felt his heartbeat quickening, barely able to contain his excitement, the level of surprise rivaling the thrill and joy he felt when the Xme phone set a historical sales record. However, he ultimately managed to restrain himself with his strong self-control. After all, he was a mature and composed entrepreneur, not a child who would shout out in excitement. At that moment, he suddenly seemed to remember something important, his brows slightly furrowing and the excitement on his face gradually fading. That was the issue of the car's cost. Their initial intention was for Su-Chun to help create a model that balanced cost-effectiveness with high-tech features, as this car was meant to seize a share of the global automotive market. But now, the technological sophistication displayed by Su-Chun's car was simply too high. Lei Bus felt that even if he guessed with his toes, he could tell that the cost of this car would definitely not be cheap. Forget about tens of thousands. Just the astonishing charging speed alone was likely worth over $1 million. Not to mention the terrifying speed, which was almost comparable to that of an airplane. And then there was the safety level, which rivaled or even surpassed that of a tank, along with the magical seats that could automatically adjust based on the occupant's condition. With such a series of high-tech features, Lei Bus believed that even if this car were sold for over $100 million, there would still be a market. After all, the wealthy pursued ultimate experiences and would definitely flock to such a high-tech marvel. However, this car was intended for the broader consumer market, aimed at capturing a share of the global automotive market, and it needed to be cost-effective. Otherwise, even if many people liked it, if they couldn't afford it, it would be all for naught and would not help them achieve their strategic goals. Thinking of this, Lei Bus sighed helplessly and said to Su-Chun with a look of regret, Teacher Su, I'm afraid this car can't be sold right now. This doesn't align with our strategy of focusing on cost-effectiveness, but we could consider shifting to the high-end car market. Perhaps we could shine in that field." Su-Chun was momentarily taken aback by Lei Bu's words, clearly not expecting him to say that. However, he quickly regained his composure and replied with a smile, "Mr. Lei, you might have misunderstood. I have been considering cost-effectiveness while manufacturing this car." Su-Chun thought to himself, if cost-effectiveness weren't a concern, he could just install a miniature nuclear fusion reactor, and the performance would be extraordinary. But that would make the costs exorbitantly high, which wouldn't meet the requirements for this modification. Lei Bu felt that Su-Chun might have some misunderstanding about what cost-effectiveness meant. In his view, it simply meant that the price should be lower so that the average person could afford it. He couldn't help but add, but the cost of this car must be at least in the millions, given the advanced technology applied. How could the production cost be low? Upon hearing this, Su-Chun was stunned and quickly waved his hand, disagreeing with Lei Bu's perspective. It's not that exaggerated. The cost is only about 50 to 60,000. Su-Chun thought to himself, after all, the technology used is just the basic version from the individual combat mechs. And a complete individual combat mech only costs over 200,000. He was merely reallocating some of that technology, so the cost of this car was indeed very low. At that moment, when Lei Bu heard Su-Chun say that the car's cost was only 50 to 60,000, he felt as if he had been frozen in place. Completely stunned, with an expression that was simply extraordinary. Shock, doubt, and excitement intertwined, as if he had heard the most unbelievable news of his life. He widened his eyes and gaped, unable to close his mouth for a long time, his mind echoing Su-Chun's words, 50 to 60,000, 50 to 60,000, 50 to 60,000. He couldn't believe that a car with such extraordinary performance could have such a low cost. If this were true, it would be terrifying. This meant they could easily dominate the global car market with this vehicle and become the undisputed industry leader. Lei Bu didn't even know how he got back to the company. Along the way, those three words kept ringing in his mind. 50 to 60,000. Chapter 296. Can we get a tank? After returning to the company, Lei Bu was still immersed in an uncontrollable excitement and enthusiasm. He immediately began comprehensive testing of the new concept car, and the results were identical to those of Su-Chun's tests. This meant the new concept car was indeed a remarkable vehicle. An excited Lei Bu couldn't wait to contact Mr. Qin. As soon as the call connected, his enthusiastic voice came through. "Mr. Qin, the new car can be launched for sale." Lei Bu's tone was filled with passion, as if he could already envision the new car achieving great success in the market. He continued, "After we got the car, we conducted a second comprehensive test, and this time it went incredibly smoothly. All the data and performance met our expectations perfectly, even better than we had imagined. I am fully confident that this vehicle will revolutionize the new energy vehicle sector, or rather, it has the potential to disrupt the entire automotive industry. Therefore, we decided to hold a press conference in the next couple of days to officially launch our new car to the world. Hearing this, Mr. Chin on the other end of the phone was somewhat surprised. He thought, that kid Su-Chun has already managed to modify the car so quickly? In Mr. Chin's original expectations, although Su-Chin's abilities were extraordinary, completing the modifications and reaching a level suitable for sale in such a short time still seemed a bit unbelievable to him. At this moment, Lei Bus continued. Teacher Su and his team have truly impressed me. No wonder our country's technology is developing so rapidly. There must be significant contributions from Teacher Su and his team. Lei Bus expressed his sincere admiration. In his mind, creating such an impressive vehicle must mean that the team behind it was exceptional and full of talent. Mr. Chin found this amusing but maintained a calm expression. He thought to himself, what team? In the end, it's just that brat alone. Although there were indeed others assisting throughout the process, those staff members worked hard, helping with many preparations and basic tasks. The key technological development and important modifications were all handled by Su-Chin himself. The others were merely supporting him. However, Mr. Chin chose not to elaborate on this, as Su-Chin's identity was quite special. Having him engage too much with outsiders regarding technical matters would not be conducive to maintaining confidentiality about his identity. It was better to be cautious. Mr. Chin then said, Su-Chun is just the liaison for their team. You don't think he did all of this himself, do you? His intention was to downplay Su-Chin's crucial role to avoid unnecessary attention. Lei Bus paused for a moment after hearing this, then chuckled awkwardly, saying, oh, is that so? Mr. Chin? I thought Teacher Su was also an engineer. I honestly thought he was the one personally handling everything. Lei Bus then realized he might have jumped to conclusions, originally thinking that Su-Chun was the core technical backbone of the entire team, only to find out he was just the liaison. His curiosity about this so-called team grew even more. Mr. Chin did not pursue this topic further and instead shifted the conversation to the new car, as that was the focus at hand. He said, the responsibility for the launch of the new concept vehicle is fully entrusted to you, and the profit-sharing ratio will remain the same as before, with the state taking 50 and you taking 50. The rest will be handled by you. I hope you can organize this launch well and successfully bring this vehicle to market. As soon as Elder Chin finished speaking, he was met with strong opposition from Lei Bus. Lei Bus quickly replied, no, Elder Chin, we need to renegotiate the profit-sharing ratio. His tone was very firm, clearly a decision made after careful consideration. Elder Chin frowned slightly upon hearing this, and his tone unconsciously became serious as he asked, oh? Are you not satisfied with the current profit-sharing ratio? Elder Chin felt a bit puzzled. After all, this ratio had been agreed upon by both parties before. Why was there a sudden need to renegotiate? Did they feel they were at a disadvantage? Lei Bus hurriedly explained, Elder Chin, please don't get me wrong. Being able to collaborate with the state is something we could only dream of, and we are grateful beyond words. However, the key technology for this vehicle was entirely modified with the help of the state. We only did some follow-up work. For us to still ask for 50 is simply not appropriate. The more Lei Bus spoke, the more he felt it was inappropriate. In his view, given that the state provided such core technological support, they could not take such a large advantage. He continued, 20%. Just give us 20, and that's enough. One portion for marketing and team salaries, and one portion for maintaining production and after-sales. That will be sufficient. Lei Bus calculated in his mind that as long as this vehicle could be successfully brought to market, with its outstanding performance, even if they only took 20 profit, the returns would still be considerable, and there would be no need to worry about making money. Moreover, this would also reflect their gratitude for the state's technical support. Elder Chin was taken aback upon hearing this. He genuinely did not expect Lei Bus to think that 50 was too much rather than too little. It should be noted that the state had mainly helped with publicity, and then there was Su-Chun providing the key technology. The rest of the workload, such as controlling production processes, conducting market research, and expanding sales channels, was all handled by the company. Yet, the state would take half of the profits without contributing much. In fact, it was already quite a lot. The company was now even willing to give up 80 to the state, which genuinely surprised Elder Chin. After contemplating for a moment, Elder Chin thought to himself that Lei Bus wasn't foolish. Business people never engage in losing deals unless they believe that this 20 would bring them substantial returns. Otherwise, they would not easily make such concessions. Could it be that Lei Bus anticipated that the newly modified concept vehicle by Su-Chun would sell exceptionally well? Hence his willingness to give up such a large portion of profit to the state. With this thought, Elder Chin couldn't help but become even more curious about the vehicle modified by Su-Chun, secretly pondering. This kid, has he created another amazing vehicle? However, he did not think too much about it, as the immediate priority was to arrange the new car launch. Then Mr. Chin said to Lei Bus, let's discuss this later. For now, focus on the launch event. If you need any assistance during the preparation process, just let us know, and the relevant authorities will definitely do their best to support you. At that moment, Lei Bus replied, Mr. Chin, we actually do need a bit of help. His tone carried a hint of expectation, suggesting that this assistance was quite important for the launch. Mr. Chin quickly asked, what help do you need? Just tell me. As long as it's reasonable, we will definitely find a way to help you. Lei Bus hesitated for a moment and then asked somewhat shyly, Mr. Chin, could you possibly arrange for us to get a tank? Chapter 297. Is Le Bussi seeking death? The launch event for the new car from XME had not even officially started when, with strong support from the relevant authorities, promotional activities were already in full swing. With such a powerful backing, the attention skyrocketed like a rocket, instantly attracting a great deal of focus. Especially during the promotional process, XME's operations were truly astonishing. They actually brought out a fifth-generation tank to hype up the new car. Furthermore, they publicly announced that there would be a special program at the upcoming launch event. That was, Le Bussi would personally drive the new car to collide head-on with the tank. Once this gimmick was released, the excitement reached a fever pitch. Even those who usually weren't interested in XME cars became curious, wondering how this would play out. Thinking that a car colliding with a tank was like an egg hitting a rock. Yet, they truly wanted to see what unexpected results would emerge. Therefore, everyone began to pay attention to this launch event. Moreover, this launch would be broadcasted live globally, indicating the wide coverage and significant impact it would have. It is worth mentioning that, during the process of expanding into the overseas automotive market, XME Company has undoubtedly been a key player. With its solid technology and cost-performance advantages, it has established a considerable presence in the overseas market. This is precisely why it has gained favor with the authorities, being entrusted with the important task of further expanding the global market and enhancing the influence of the automotive industry. With the dual support of XME's own marketing efforts and the national level, the results were immediate. Even before the live broadcast had started, millions of viewers were already eagerly waiting in the live stream, all anticipating the curtain to rise on this unique launch event. The comments section was buzzing, with netizens expressing their opinions in a flurry. Wow, I heard Mr. Le is going to compete with a tank to see which is tougher. I have to see how this goes. Surely it can't just be a gimmick. How could a car possibly be tougher than a tank? Right. And that tank is a fifth-generation one. Do you know how thick its armor is? Mr. Le, we have always supported you, but such gimmicks are not good. You might get criticized heavily. It's said that a certain company's marketing is top-notch, but I think this time it's going to flop. Amidst the sea of doubts and negative comments, the live stream still began as scheduled. As the scene opened, viewers were presented with winding and twisting racing tracks. The tracks shimmered under the sunlight, seemingly waiting for something to break the silence. Just then, something seemed to be darting across the track at lightning speed. The speed was astonishing, and the audience could only catch a fleeting shadow. It was as if a ghostly figure flashed by on the track. No one had time to see what it truly was. Some knowledgeable viewers quickly started speculating in the comments. A race car? Wow, is Mr. Le's new car a race car? No, which race car is this fast? I could only see a shadow. This must be fake. I've had the fortune of watching real racing competitions, and this speed has already far exceeded that of a race car, even surpassing the speed of sound. I feel like it's faster than an airplane. This background can't be real. It's fake. It must be fake. Mr. Le, hurry and turn off the background. We want to see you. Yes, we want to see Mr. Le. Just as everyone was discussing and the comments were flooding in, the director's voice timely rang out. Don't worry, Mr. Le will be here soon. As the director finished speaking, the car that had left only a shadow and dazzled everyone with its speed began to gradually slow down, like an athlete coming to a stop after sprinting. Finally, it came to a steady halt right in front of the camera. The door slowly opened, and out stepped Mr. Le, dressed in a stylish racing suit, full of energy. With his trademark smile, he enthusiastically waved at the camera and said with a strong voice, "Hello, friends. Welcome to our new concept car launch event." Seeing Mr. Le emerge unscathed and calm from that incredibly fast car caused the live stream to explode with excitement. Wow, wow, wow. The background was actually real, which means everything just now was real. Amazing. This car is incredible, and Mr. Le's driving skills are impressive too. But wait, this car doesn't look like a race car. It doesn't look much different from the previous model. So why is it so fast? The design was already attractive. I don't mind if the appearance doesn't change, but the key is that with such speed, it can't be a new energy vehicle, right? Yes, it must be a gasoline car, but with gas prices so high, who can afford to fill up? Although the car is impressive, launching a gasoline car at this time is a misstep for Mr. Le. As the crowd marveled at the car's speed, they began to speculate about its type, feeling a twinge of regret that it might be a traditional fuel vehicle. After all, in this era of soaring fuel prices, the cost of using such vehicles is prohibitively high. Everyone was pondering how unfortunate it would be if such a great car's sales were affected by fuel consumption. However, what Le Bussi said next almost made them lose their composure. After greeting everyone, Le Bussi proudly began to introduce the new concept car behind him. He raised his voice and exclaimed, "Friends, this is our latest new concept car. Of course, it is a new energy vehicle." Upon hearing this, the audience in the live stream was momentarily stunned, unable to react for several seconds, completely taken aback by the news. Soon after, the comments in the live stream began to scroll wildly. What? This thing is a new energy vehicle? Whose new energy vehicle is this fast? Standing next to the new concept car, Le Bussi observed the shock and confusion in the comments, and his smile grew even brighter. He then began to detail the powerful features of this new vehicle, his tone filled with confidence and pride. This car boasts an incredibly high battery capacity, consuming only 0.5 of its power even at top speeds. Moreover, its charging speed is astonishing, taking only 3 seconds to fully charge. As these jaw-dropping advantages were revealed one by one, not only were the viewers in the live stream left speechless, but also the leaders of the automotive industry from various countries, who were usually well-informed and knowledgeable about automotive technology, were also left dumbfounded. They widened their eyes in disbelief, thinking to themselves, how is this possible? This is completely beyond their understanding of current automotive technology. They began to question the authenticity of these features. Bus seemed to have anticipated this reaction and calmly showed everyone testing videos of the relevant features. The videos clearly documented the entire performance testing process of the car, with detailed data and clear results that left no room for doubt. Bus even patted his chest and guaranteed, if there is any deception or false advertising, we are willing to compensate tenfold. Next, Bus prepared to showcase another powerful feature of the new concept car, its extraordinary safety. With strong support and coordination from the government, the company received a rare opportunity to compete against a tank. The video displayed a tank slowly coming into view, its robust and thick exterior resembling an indestructible steel fortress. The heavy chassis pressed down on the ground, causing it to tremble slightly, clearly declaring that this was a genuine tank, not some model or prop. The audience was left in shock, thinking to themselves, no way, Bus. Are you serious? Are you really prepared to compete with a tank in terms of toughness? Everyone thinks this is absolutely crazy, as in most people's minds, a car is as fragile as paper compared to a tank. If it were to collide, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, that's exactly what happened. The individual in question confidently got into the car, started the engine, and drove it to face the tank, positioning it directly opposite, like two warriors about to engage in a duel. Then, the engine roared to life, producing a deep and powerful rumble, reminiscent of a colossal beast awakening. The sound echoed through the air, tightening everyone's nerves, and the tension in the atmosphere reached its peak. Witnessing this scene, the viewers in the live stream couldn't help but swallow hard. They held their breath, eyes glued to the screen, some hoping that perhaps this person was just putting on a show to scare everyone. After all, in such a scenario, if they truly dared to collide, it would surely result in total destruction. The thickness of the tank's armor is no joke. Ordinary vehicles wouldn't just collide. Even getting too close could potentially lead to an explosion from the car's battery, and that would be a terrifying outcome. The viewers began to worry for the individual's safety, with comments flooding the screen. Surely they wouldn't go that far, right? Can't they just play it safe? If you really dare to crash, no matter the cost of the car, I would support you even if it meant losing everything. Oh no, the car is moving. They are serious. Some viewers couldn't bear to watch the potentially gruesome scene unfold and closed their eyes. Meanwhile, others wanted to capture this historic moment and quickly took out their phones to record. Some unscrupulous media outlets, eager for clicks, even began to spread rumors about the individual's demise, causing chaos across the internet. However, there were also some brave viewers who widened their eyes, intently watching the scene, not wanting to miss a single moment. Suddenly, the new concept car shot forward like an arrow, moving so fast that it left everyone stunned. Then, with a loud bang, the car collided solidly with the tank. The impact sounded like thunder, reverberating through the air, making people's ears ring. What followed left everyone astounded. The tank, which was perceived as indestructible and incredibly heavy, actually slid back several meters from the force of the impact. The ground was marked with deep tracks from the tank's treads, clearly indicating that the force of this collision was beyond imagination. Meanwhile, the camera began to shift to another side where the CEO was. And just as he and the new concept car had not fully appeared on screen, the audience heard an involuntary exclamation from the cameraman. Wow. Although the sound was not loud, it clearly reached the ears of all the viewers through the live stream, instantly heightening their curiosity as if a huge stone had been thrown into a calm lake. Everyone was eagerly wondering, what happened? What's going on? What just occurred? The cameraman must have seen something. Could it be that the CEO was in trouble? It was easy to guess. How could a car collide with a tank? That would be reckless, right? Indeed, it had already pushed the tank several meters away. The impact was significant, so surely there would be consequences. Just as everyone was silently mourning for the CEO, feeling anxious and restless, the new concept car appeared on screen completely unharmed. It was clear that the front and the entire body of the car had no dents or signs of damage, as if it had merely brushed against something rather than endured an intense collision. Looking at the CEO, he was sitting comfortably in the car, smiling and greeting everyone, looking entirely at ease as if nothing had happened. In contrast, the tank had suffered damage. Its tracks were shattered, and the once impenetrable shell now had visible cracks, appearing somewhat disheveled. Upon seeing this, the live stream audience was utterly dumbfounded. Everyone was speechless, shocked by the result that exceeded all expectations. The entire live stream room fell into silence for a moment. Then, the comments flooded in like a volcanic eruption. Wow, echoed throughout the live stream. Chapter 299, it's them? So it's not surprising. At the new car launch event, this thrilling crash test was a complete success. The visually stunning test stirred up waves of excitement in the hearts of all witnesses. The CEO casually opened the car door and stepped out with composure. The confident smile remained on his face, as if the intense collision with the tank was just a regular test drive, having no impact on him at all. His calm demeanor would astonish anyone who saw it. If it weren't for the live stream presenting everything unreservedly to millions of viewers, there would surely be those who could not believe that this scene was real. After all, in common perception, comparing cars to tanks is like an ant trying to shake a tree, utterly unreasonable. Yet now, the facts were right in front of them. With millions of eyes glued to the live stream, the clear visuals and tangible details, how could they be fake? At this moment, the comments in the live stream were refreshing on the screen like a waterfall. A car colliding with a tank, and surprisingly, the car comes out unscathed while the tank's tracks are damaged. Today is truly eye-opening. Brothers, let's show our admiration in the comments. I've confirmed it with my own eyes. I'm certainly not someone who can afford this car. Why does the CEO have to launch such an impressive vehicle when I'm at my poorest? Regardless of whether one is a fan of the CEO. At this moment, all the viewers of the live stream are deeply impressed by the incredible performance of this car. The unimaginable speed, astonishingly low power consumption, absurdly fast charging speed, along with its seemingly invincible crash resistance, make it feel like a sci-fi product from the future, breaking all traditional perceptions of automobiles. However, it's not just the ordinary viewers who are deeply shocked. In a military research institute, a group of defense researchers is also staring intently at the screen. Their expressions, however, appear especially grave, even somewhat grim. This is because the tank being used as the test impact object is the culmination of their years of hard work. It is their proud masterpiece. The materials used on the tank were developed through countless experiments and analyses, consuming vast amounts of human resources, material resources, and time. Specifically researched for their exceptional defensive capabilities, which can easily withstand conventional artillery strikes. In the military field, it has always been regarded as an indestructible entity. Initially, when they heard from their senior colleague about borrowing their tank for a crash test, they were quite dismissive, thinking it was just an ordinary test with no significant implications. Until later, when they learned that the test would involve a car, they could hardly contain their disbelief. Testing a car's crash performance using a tank is akin to using a rock to test the hardness of an egg. The outcome is obvious. So what is the point of the test? Yet, despite their thoughts, their curiosity got the better of them, as this situation was simply too unconventional. Thus, these typically rigorous and serious experts brought in their small stools, like a group of curious students, to wait in the live stream room, eager to see what the seemingly predictable test would reveal. However, the extent of their initial disbelief was matched only by the intensity of their shock. When they saw their meticulously crafted tank being knocked aside by a car, which emerged completely unharmed while their tank-esque tracks were shattered, their eyes widened in disbelief. It felt as though they were in an absurd dream, unable to believe that what they were witnessing was real. The tank they developed had actually been outperformed in crash resistance by a car. To them, this was undoubtedly one of the most sci-fi and incredible events they had ever encountered in their lives. At that moment, an elderly expert with white hair hurriedly rushed in from outside. His steps were somewhat hurried, and his face bore a serious yet complex expression, clearly indicating he brought important news. As soon as he entered, he captured the attention of all the experts present, who eagerly looked at him, waiting for him to speak. The elderly expert cleared his throat and, with a tone that was a mix of helplessness and an attempt to reassure everyone, said, "Comrades, there's no need to be discouraged. I have found out the details. This vehicle was crafted by our nation's top expert team and is a new concept product launched to seize a share of the global automotive market. Losing to it is not a loss for us." Upon hearing this news, the experts were momentarily stunned, their minds racing with thoughts. This vehicle was made by the country's leading RD team, which undoubtedly was the same mysterious group that produced mechas, strategic warships, and aerospace carriers. In the scientific community, legends about this team were widespread. Yet they remained so enigmatic that even experts in military research institutions were unaware of who exactly comprised this team or how many members it had. However, since this was a product crafted by the legendary team, the seemingly unbelievable outcome became easier to accept. One expert let out a quiet sigh of relief and remarked, "So it's them, that makes sense. I didn't expect them to design such a powerful vehicle. Its crash resistance is even superior to our tanks. I truly admire their capabilities." Another expert quickly chimed in, "Exactly. Since it's their work, I have to concede. If it weren't for the changing landscape of warfare weapons making tank production unnecessary, we would definitely find a way to acquire such excellent materials. If applied to our armaments, our combat capabilities would be significantly upgraded." At this moment, another expert furrowed his brows, looking puzzled, and said, "However, developing such powerful materials must not have been easy. We spent so much time and energy just researching tank protection materials. They managed to use this material in cars and endow them with such extraordinary crash resistance. That's impressive." The elderly expert, listening to this, had a somewhat complex expression and replied, "It should be quite difficult to develop. After all, this technology has surpassed our imagination. However, I heard from Elder Cheen that their team only spent 2 days modifying this vehicle." Upon hearing this, the well-experienced experts, who were usually accustomed to scientific achievements, were completely taken aback. Chapter 300. With technology, one can act freely. What? They built such a formidable vehicle in just 2 days? Let's not even mention the battery and the power engine of this car, just the collision-resistant material outside. If we were to develop it ourselves, it would probably take us decades to achieve. Is that team made up of gods? One expert's eyes widened in shock and frustration, unable to help but exclaim loudly. The other experts nodded in agreement, their previously somewhat comforted emotions instantly filled with endless feelings of defeat. The gap is just too vast. How can they create such impressive technology in such a short time, leaving us far behind? If they knew that the mysterious team from a certain country actually had only one core member, they would probably be even more astonished. However, these experts are all dedicated to the research and development for their nation, and their feelings of defeat quickly faded with self-comfort. After all, everyone hopes to make their country stronger, and they genuinely wish for the nation to possess such powerful vehicles to compete for more benefits in the global market. Yet, those feeling intense frustration because of this new concept car also include people from a certain country across the ocean, and they won't be able to recover easily. At this moment, in a conference room in that country, high-ranking officials were gathered in front of a large screen, displeased as they watched the live broadcast from the aforementioned country. Initially, they had not taken this live broadcast seriously, in their preconceived notions. How could the technological level of that country's cars possibly compare to their long-established automotive manufacturers? They were simply not on the same level. However, they never expected that these automotive companies had found such a powerful external support, which was, in fact, the official backing from their government. This revelation left them feeling quite uncomfortable. One official was so furious that he gritted his teeth, his face dark as if it could drip water, and he angrily stated, "That country has definitely applied their military manufacturing technology to their cars. Otherwise, it would be impossible to create such powerful vehicles." So having technology means they can do whatever they want. Another official, a general, furrowed his brows, filled with worry and helplessness, and echoed, "In this case, what competitive capability do our cars have left? This car from that country is just too tempting. Even I want to buy one to drive. If it hits the market, it will completely disrupt our automotive industry." Hearing this, the first official felt an even stronger sense of crisis. He paced back and forth in the conference room, and after thinking for a moment, he said seriously, "It seems we need to act quickly. Issuing restrictions against that country is imminent. We cannot allow their cars to enter our market. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable." But just thinking about these restrictions made him even more frustrated. They had originally contacted various parties here, hoping to unite and put pressure on the Dragon Nation. However, one by one, they became worried that such actions would lead to resentment from the Dragon Nation, which would prevent them from reaping the benefits of the Eternal Day plan. As a result, they never agreed to impose targeted restrictions on the Dragon Nation, especially the party that had been in contact. Despite the Dragon Nation already rejecting them and refusing to share the results of the Eternal Day plan, they still did not dare to offend the Dragon Nation. At that moment, the Secretary of State suddenly spoke up. He appeared calm and composed, in stark contrast to those around him who looked anxious and angry. The crowd looked at him in confusion, wondering how he could remain so calm in such a heated situation. Did he have a solution? The Secretary of State slightly raised his chin and said slowly, "Everyone, there's no need to be so nervous. I admit that the new concept car released by the Dragon Nation has indeed advanced performance. Any key technology is beyond our capability, and even if we spent years researching, we might not be able to develop anything comparable." At this point, the Secretary of State deliberately paused. The meeting room fell silent, everyone holding their breath and staring at him, waiting for him to continue. Seeing their reaction, he felt quite satisfied and continued. "But what do you think the price of such a car, which combines various advanced technologies, would be?" General Derek was taken aback for a moment, then said, "At least $5 million. A car this impressive must cost a lot. If it were cheaper, it wouldn't match its status." As soon as he finished speaking, others began to disagree. $5 million? Just the impact capability that exceeds that of a tank is worth $5 million. Frankly, it should be at least $10 million. $10 million? That's so expensive. Who can afford it? Only the wealthy could buy it. However, someone added, "Although it's pricey, I think it's worth that price." Given how advanced the technology is. Hearing their discussion, the Secretary of State couldn't suppress a smile. "So, haven't you realized? The Dragon Nation's production of such an expensive car will not affect us at all. It won't take away much market share because the people who can afford their cars are definitely well off. They won't mind purchasing a second or third vehicle. And these individuals are not the main consumers of the automotive market. I can even confidently assert that the Dragon Nation's car is completely contrary to their strategy of focusing on cost-effectiveness and seizing global market share. You all can just sit back and watch the show. There's no need to be so alarmed." After hearing the Secretary of State's seemingly reasonable analysis, the crowd erupted into applause. The gloom on their faces was quickly dispelled, and they began to praise. "Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Our Secretary of State is indeed impressive. The analysis is quite thorough. Yes, such an advanced car must be prohibitively expensive. There's no way it can compete for market share with our other vehicles. So we can relax now." Chapter 301. Price Announcement. The Internet erupts. At this moment, the previous gloom and frustration had vanished, and he became cheerful. He smiled at the Secretary of State and said, "Mr. Jack, you really relieve my worries. Let's just enjoy the show, haha." In an instant, the previously tense atmosphere in the conference room disappeared without a trace, replaced by a joyful ambience. They laughed while continuing to watch the live broadcast, eager to see what sky-high price the other side would set for this car. At this moment, the live stream was reaching its final step, the much-anticipated price reveal. Everyone stretched their necks, widened their eyes, and focused intently on the announcement of the final price. The atmosphere in the entire live broadcast room was so tense that one could almost hear everyone's heartbeat. The senior officials on the other side were also craning their necks, staring at the screen without blinking. Their concentrated expressions made it seem as if they were the main characters of this press conference. They were all secretly speculating how high the price would be. However, just before the price was revealed, a voice suddenly interrupted. He cleared his throat, a hint of apology on his face, and spoke to the camera. Before we announce the price, we want to apologize. This price may hurt some fans' feelings. However, we promise to make it up to those fans who may feel disappointed. Upon hearing this, everyone in the live stream was momentarily stunned, unable to grasp the meaning of his words. Gradually, they began to react, expressing their opinions in the comments. Is it too expensive? The CEO is so considerate. If we can't afford it, that is our problem, not yours. Don't worry, we won't blame you. Even if you sell this car for millions. We won't say anything. Millions? Those of you upstairs have a narrow perspective. If this car only sells for a few million, then the CEO is really too kind. I think it would be reasonable if it sells for tens of millions. Exactly. So how much is it? Don't keep us in suspense, just announce the price already. We can't wait. On the other side, a senior official excitedly pointed at the screen and said, the price is about to be announced. From the tone of this car owner from the other side, it seems the price will be quite high. Haha, it looks like it's just as we expected. Such an expensive car, hardly anyone will be able to afford it, so it won't pose any threat to our automotive industry. Hearing this, the Secretary of State laughed and said, that's just what we want. Let's wait and see how they wrap this up, haha. The crowd burst into laughter, the sound echoing in the conference room, while they continued to fixate on the screen, eager to witness the moment they deemed a jaw-dropping price. Just as their laughter filled the air, the speaker finally announced the price. On the big screen behind him, a striking number appeared, 199,999. Everyone was stunned. The laughter abruptly ceased as if someone had hit the pause button, and the room fell silent, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Eyes widened in disbelief. They silently began counting in their heads. Units, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. 19,999? After a brief silence, the live stream exploded with comments, the barrage of messages surging forth like a tidal wave, nearly overwhelming the screen. Such an incredible vehicle, priced at less than 200,000. Did I see that right? This price is so accessible, it's practically a steal. It's vastly different from what I expected. Is the speaker planning a charity? My goodness, I thought I'd never be able to afford such an amazing car. And now it's so cheap. I need to hurry and save up to buy one. Meanwhile, the crowd's gaze remained fixed on the screen. Their earlier smug smiles completely vanished, leaving them utterly speechless. Some even took out their phones to quickly check the exchange rate. Upon doing the math, they broke out in a cold sweat. 200,000 local currency equates to less than 27,000 in another currency, under 30,000. The exclamations of disbelief from a prominent figure filled the room. He was so shocked that his body trembled slightly. He never expected a vehicle packed with advanced technology to be priced so low. This completely exceeded his imagination. His previous confident analysis felt like a joke, hitting him hard in the face. At that moment, the speaker continued, friends, are you satisfied with this price? If not, that's okay. This is the price before government subsidies. After subsidies, each vehicle will be priced. As his words fell, the number on the big screen changed again. A new figure emerged, revealing the subsidized price, 99,999. The government would directly subsidize 100,000. When this number appeared, the crowd was initially stunned, then rubbed their eyes in disbelief. Once they confirmed they hadn't misread or misheard, they completely lost it. The excitement surged like a flood, instantly spreading throughout the live stream. The comments rolled in like a flurry of snowflakes, each one filled with uncontainable joy and cheers. My goodness, this is practically a giveaway. The cost-performance ratio is off the charts. This isn't just buying a car, it's like scoring an unbelievable deal. The support from the government is truly impressive. The level of subsidies shows they are genuinely considering the well-being of the people. With such an amazing vehicle, I absolutely have to get my hands on one. Initially, I thought it might be a bit pricey, but now, at this price, I would buy it even with my eyes closed. It feels wrong not to purchase such a great car at such a significant discount. Not just the citizens of this country, but people around the world who are watching this live stream are astonished by the pricing. It's like a heavy bomb has dropped, creating massive waves in the automotive market and even the entire tech industry. Those foreign viewers who were just curious about the car are now restless, thinking that if they could get such a wonderful vehicle at such a low price, it would be a huge win. Over there, the situation is completely chaotic. The Secretary of State, who was relatively calm before, now looks pale, with beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. He shouts, no, we absolutely cannot let their cars enter our market. Otherwise, our automotive industry will be doomed. We must stop it at all costs. At this moment, the Secretary of State has lost all his previous confidence and pride. He appears frantic, as if the end of the world is approaching. He understands that once this car enters their market, with its exceptional cost-performance ratio and outstanding capabilities, it will undoubtedly disrupt their previously stable automotive industry. Of course, everyone else in the room is just as panicked. The cheerful atmosphere that once filled the conference room has vanished, replaced by chaos and tension. The leader's face is ashen. He suddenly slams the table, stands up, and shouts hoarsely, prepare to issue a restriction order. We must keep this car from entering our market, even if it causes an uproar among our citizens. They are no longer considering why such an impressive vehicle is priced so low. Their only thought is to find every possible way to prevent it from entering their market and protect their own automotive industry. Just then, the leader's phone suddenly rings, the jarring sound cutting through the tense atmosphere and startling him. Irritated, he picks up the phone and sees it's a call from a certain country. He figures it's probably about this issue. The voice of the prime minister from that country comes through, filled with urgency and anxiety. Mr. Leader, we would like to discuss the details regarding the previous restriction order. As you know, the automotive industry is a pillar of our economy, and any impact would be a huge blow. We just watched the live stream from your country, and it's terrifying. The emergence of this new car will surely throw our automotive market into chaos. Therefore, we would like to discuss how we can respond together. Upon hearing this, he realized that the concerned party had indeed been following this live broadcast and had recognized the alarming implications of the actions taken by the country in question. They were here seeking solidarity. He let out a cold snort, feeling somewhat dissatisfied with their previous indecision. But since they were now in the same predicament, he said, "Humph. Now you all realize the urgency, huh? Where were you earlier? However, since you understand the seriousness of the issue, let's discuss this properly. We need to come up with a way to block this new vehicle from entering our markets. Otherwise, we will all be facing tough times." Soon after, calls started coming in from neighboring regions and even some countries from another continent, all expressing their concerns over this new concept vehicle. They hoped to collaborate in resisting this new vehicle from entering their respective markets. On the screen, the voice of the CEO continued, seemingly anticipating the stir this would cause. He calmly stated, "I know many of our fans are upset about the pricing because, as some of our earliest supporters, they see that a similarly designed vehicle is now cheaper and more advanced. I apologize for that. As I mentioned earlier, we will ensure quality after-sales service. Every initial purchaser of our first batch of cars will receive a complimentary new concept vehicle." Upon hearing this, the audience in the live stream erupted once again. The barrage of comments accelerated, filled with praise for the CEO and the company. The CEO is so generous. This is incredibly thoughtful of him, considering the early users. Just for this, I will stick with this brand from now on. Wow, this treatment is exceptional. To get another car for free is like winning the lottery. I thought I had made a bad decision buying early, but now it seems I hit the jackpot. This move is brilliant. On the other end of the line, he was taken aback by the CEO's statements, his eyes widening in disbelief. He thought to himself, how could he be so generous? This means not only have they set the price of the new concept vehicle extremely low, but they are also offering it for free? What is going on? Don't they fear losses? The Secretary of State narrowed his eyes slightly, sensing something. After years of navigating the political arena, he had developed a sharp insight into the underlying interests at play. Business people are extremely focused on profits. Such generous offers could only stem from a more significant benefit behind the scenes. Although it seemed unlikely, there was only one possibility. The production cost of their new concept vehicle was shockingly low. Upon hearing this, everyone snapped back to reality. Their faces a mix of confusion and shock. The idea that such an advanced vehicle could have an extremely low cost was simply illogical. How could this be possible? Did they possess some form of technology that was unknown to others? However, if it's from a certain country, there is indeed such a possibility. Yes, the technology in that country has been developing at a rocket-like pace in recent years, reaching a terrifying level. It is entirely possible for them to produce inexpensive yet highly advanced automotive components. It seems we really underestimated them. The leader slammed the table in frustration, the loud bang startling everyone around. All eyes immediately turned to him. His face was flushed, and his eyes seemed to blaze with fire. Gritting his teeth, he said, "No matter what, we absolutely cannot allow this car from that country to dominate the global market. Prepare to notify all parties. We are going to hold an emergency meeting immediately. We must implement the restrictions as soon as possible. We can't delay any longer." Upon hearing this, everyone in the meeting room did not dare to slack off and quickly took action, making calls to arrange relevant matters. They understood that this battle with the automotive industry from that country was critical to the survival of their own automotive industry, and there was no room for carelessness. Chapter 303. The speed of domestic media is remarkable inside the company. A grand celebration banquet was in full swing. The banquet hall was festively decorated, filled with laughter and joy, and the employees' faces radiated happiness and pride. After all, the successful launch of this new concept car was truly exhilarating. With a consumer-friendly price and extremely advanced features, it was like dropping a heavy bomb in the automotive market, instantly triggering a buying frenzy. On the very first day, orders soared to over 1 million vehicles. Moreover, this number continued to increase at an astonishing rate of tens of thousands per day, effortlessly setting unprecedented sales records, capturing the attention of the entire automotive industry. In terms of manufacturing, the government provided strong support, actively assisting in building factories to meet the enormous market demand for this car. The relevant technology was generously shared by the team with the factories. With sharp market insight, the government had already predicted that this car would become a global sensation, so the scale of the factory construction was quite impressive. Its daily production could reach thousands of vehicles. Currently, just the pre-sale deposits were nearly 100 billion a day, and with the continuous influx of car payments, there were several hundred billion coming in daily, thanks to the full support of the government. Otherwise, the company alone would have found it difficult to handle such a massive volume of orders. However, just as everyone was immersed in the joyous atmosphere of the celebration banquet, enjoying the fruits of victory, the phone on the table suddenly rang. The smile on the face of the executive instantly faded to a pale expression after answering the call. It felt as though he had been struck by a bolt from the blue, and he sensed that the sky was about to fall. After briefly briefing a few senior executives beside him, he hurriedly left the banquet and drove to a mysterious location. In a somber conference room, Elder Qin sat at the head of the table, his expression serious and his eyes revealing a hint of worry. Elder Zhao happened to have business with Elder Qin and was also present. At this moment, Lei Busi, who usually faced countless challenges with composure, was pacing anxiously in the room, muttering to himself, "Oh no, this is bad. We haven't even started, and we're already in trouble. I never expected that they would unite so many countries to impose restrictions on us. This is really not good." The more he spoke, the more agitated he became, his voice trembling slightly. Countries in Europe, those in North America, and even others we've dealt with, are all key markets for our car exports. With these restrictions, who are we going to sell our cars to? I anticipated good profits, which is why I generously offered the first batch of customers our new concept cars for free. Oh no, this is really going to backfire. We haven't even started making money, and now we might have to pay for our mistakes. And bankruptcy could be a small problem. Elder Qin furrowed his brows upon hearing Lei Busi's words, fully aware of the seriousness of the situation. This move was undoubtedly a strategy that would harm them as much as it targeted their adversaries. They seemed determined to protect their domestic automotive industry, even if it meant clashing with those who had already paid deposits. This was indeed a tricky issue, not only posing a huge crisis for the company, but also making it very unfavorable for the domestic automotive industry to reach global markets. They must find a way to persuade these nations to lift the restrictions, otherwise, all their efforts in recent days would be in vain. Seeing the worried expressions on Elder Qin and Lei Busi's faces, Elder Zhao couldn't help but ask, "Elder Qin, do you have any ideas?" Elder Qin slowly stood up, a determined look in his eyes. Angrily, he said, "These guys are getting a bit too bold, forgetting their place. We just flexed our muscles, and they forgot so quickly. It seems we need to show them some real deterrence." Elder Zhao was taken aback by this statement, widening his eyes in concern. "Elder Qin, do you mean to take military action against them? This is no small matter. The consequences could be unimaginable." Elder Qin shook his head in exasperation at Elder Zhao's terrified expression. Deterrence doesn't necessarily mean military action. However, we need to think carefully about how to deter them. We can't act recklessly. Just then, a crisp phone ring suddenly broke the heavy atmosphere in the conference room. Everyone looked at each other, unsure of who might be calling at such a moment. Suddenly, Elder Zhao realized it was his phone ringing. He quickly pulled it out to check and saw that it was a call from Su Chun. He gestured to Elder Qin and Lei Busi and stepped outside to take the call. Old Zhao pressed the answer button, a bit puzzled, and asked, "You rascal, aren't you busy modifying the aerospace mothership? How do you have time to call me?" On the other end of the line, Su Chin's voice remained calm and steady as he slowly replied, "It's done. Done." Old Zhao's voice clearly carried a hint of surprise and disbelief. He was taken aback by Su Chin's sudden news. "Your speed is too fast. Wait, have you been working overtime again? How many times do I have to tell you? Young man, you need to take care of your health. Although you're young, your health is your capital for revolution. You can't just waste it like this. You have to uphold the principle of working hard for the country for 100 years, so you must pay attention to your health." At this moment, Old Zhao was evidently more concerned about Su Chin's physical condition than the shocking news of the aerospace mothership's completion. He knew very well Su Chin's work style. He was simply a workaholic, completely disregarding his health once he immersed himself in his work, operating like an unwearied machine around the clock. Su Chin chuckled on the other end, clearly having guessed Old Zhao's thoughts. A bit embarrassed, he said, "Actually, it's not too bad. I couldn't wait for the aerospace mothership to be completed, so I just put in a bit more effort." Old Zhao, full of concern, replied, "Now that it's done, you should take a good rest. Although with greater ability comes greater responsibility, you can't do everything by yourself. Make sure to delegate some work to others." After saying this, he silently thought to himself that given the cutting-edge technology and complex projects Su Chun was involved in, it was likely that others wouldn't be able to handle it. He sighed helplessly. "Forget it, let's not talk about that. You called for a reason, right?" At this point, Su Chun also put away his smile and seriously addressed the main topic. "There are two things. One is to report to you that the modification of the aerospace mothership is complete. The second thing is, I saw in the news that some countries have issued restrictions on our automobile brand." Old Zhao was taken aback for a moment, surprised. Is this news already out so quickly? Domestic media really is fast. Su Chin narrowed his eyes slightly, his tone carrying a hint of unwillingness and anger. "Old Zhao, it seems these guys are not afraid of us. We can't just let this go. After all, the new concept car took me 2 days to modify. We can't let them crush it so easily." Old Zhao said, "I know, Elder Qin is already preparing to intimidate those guys, but we haven't figured out how to do it yet." Hearing this, Su Chin suddenly slapped his thigh and excitedly said, "This is easy. Old Zhao, just listen to me." He then detailed the thoughts he had when he first saw the news to Old Zhao. Old Zhao listened quietly, and as Su Chin spoke, his eyes widened more and more, and his expression gradually shifted from initial confusion to surprise and excitement. Finally, he also slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "Great idea." Chapter 304. The Suspended Ship Above the Capital. After hanging up the phone, Mr. Zhao hurriedly walked away, his expression a mix of joy from the good news brought by Su Chun and the seriousness of the upcoming challenging situation. Soon, he returned to the somewhat oppressive room. At that moment, Only Mr. Qin remained seated, as Mr. Labus had already left. Before departing, Mr. Qin noticed the worry and anxiety in Mr. Labus's eyes. He gave his shoulder a reassuring pat, with a strength that seemed to carry a sense of calm and certainty, and said earnestly, "Our nation has changed significantly. We will not sit idly by in the face of such blatant injustice. We will strike back hard and seek justice. You can rest easy, the sky won't fall." Upon hearing these words, the tangled worries in Mr. Labus's heart eased somewhat, and he felt more at ease. However, while the comforting words brought some solace, he still had no clue how to navigate the complex international chessboard, how to maneuver cleverly, and how to boldly fight back to reclaim the trampled justice. With a heart full of helplessness, he left the room quietly, bearing a trace of reluctance and concern. At this moment, seeing Mr. Zhao return, Mr. Qin's previously furrowed brow relaxed slightly, and he raised his eyes, filled with curiosity. Mr. Zhao, with a beaming smile that hinted at his confidence, cleared his throat and said, "Let's gather our people for a meeting to discuss how to respond to the pressing challenges we face. The current situation is like a storm approaching, but we need to find a way to stand firm in the wind and even turn the tide." Mr. Qin nodded in agreement and was about to respond when Mr. Zhao continued, "Old Qin, I just spoke with Xiao Chun. This kid is quite clever and proposed an idea that I found very intriguing. You should definitely hear it. It could serve as a powerful warning to those troublesome entities, making them reconsider their stance." Mr. Qin, already troubled by the response strategies, perked up at these words, leaning forward eagerly and asking, "What idea? Hurry and tell me." Mr. Zhao's smile widened, the crow's feet at the corners of his eyes revealing a hint of pride as he said, "Xiao Chun just called to report some fantastic news. The transformation of the air and space mothership has now been completed." Upon hearing this, Mr. Qin felt as if he had been struck by lightning, springing up from his seat with wide eyes, filled with shock and disbelief, exclaiming, "So soon? It's only been a few days. What efficiency! Truly that clever kid." Mr. Zhao shook his head helplessly, the smile on his face dimming slightly, replaced by concern and emotion. He sighed and said, "That kid must have been working overtime again. You know his temperament. Once he gets into work, it's like he is possessed, completely disregarding his own well-being. He is truly a hard worker." Upon hearing this, Elder Qin immediately stood up, his expression showing signs of urgency. He waved his hand emphatically and said, "How can that be? We'll arrange a comprehensive physical examination for Xiao Chun right away. We must ensure the child is in good health. He is our treasure, the backbone of our nation. If he gets exhausted, the loss would be tremendous." Elder Zhao hurriedly stepped forward, gently patting Elder Qin's back to reassure him, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it immediately, ensuring every detail is covered, leaving no risk of overexertion." Only then did Elder Qin's expression soften, and he nodded, indicating for Elder Zhao to continue. Elder Zhao then said, "Xiao Chun is now aware of the recent restrictions imposed by certain entities through news reports. With the transformation of the aerospace carrier now complete, it is indeed the time to showcase our strength. You've been eager to deter those arrogant individuals, haven't you?" In Xiao Chen's view, directly bringing the aerospace carrier to their doorstep would have an immediate deterrent effect. Just imagine, that steel behemoth positioned by their coastline, its cannons ominously directed at them. How could they not be intimidated? Hearing this, Elder Qin couldn't help but slightly close his eyes, instantly envisioning the shocking scene. A towering, technologically advanced aerospace carrier, shimmering with a cold metallic sheen, with hundreds of electromagnetic cannons arranged like a beehive, their muzzles ominously pointing towards the enemy coastline. Once the firepower is unleashed, it would be a saturated attack with flashing electric light and raining projectiles. No matter how much those individuals might bristle, faced with such a steel torrent, they would certainly feel apprehensive. Thinking this way, Elder Qin became excited, his face flushed, fists clenched, eyes gleaming as he said, "This is great. If we talk about the most deterrent national heavy weapon of our country right now, it has to be our aerospace carrier, usually kept under wraps. But when it comes to a critical moment, it truly is our stabilizing force. When the hundreds of electromagnetic cannons unleash their full power, it would be a force to be reckoned with. Anyone would think twice before acting recklessly." As he was about to make a decisive gesture to finalize this plan, a bold and unconventional thought suddenly struck him. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Xiao Chen's idea is still too conservative." Elder Zhao, who was immersed in the vision of the aerospace carrier's deterrent effect, was momentarily taken aback by this remark, looking puzzled as he questioned, "Still conservative? What grand idea are you hiding, you old fox? Speak up." Elder Qin grinned, his smile reflecting both confidence in strategy and a daring spirit. His eyes sparkled with sharp intensity as he proposed, "I suggest we bring the aerospace carrier directly above them. Let it hover in the sky, overseeing their entire territory. In this way, their every move would be under our surveillance, and the electromagnetic cannons would hang like the sword of Damocles, ready to strike down with thunderous force at the slightest provocation. Let us see if they dare to act recklessly and attempt to manipulate us." As he spoke, the Elder Qin looked at Zhao Yong, a hint of excitement appearing at the corners of his mouth. "What do you think, old Zhao? Is my plan good?" Zhao Yong immediately gave a thumbs up to Qin. "Brilliant. Truly brilliant." Zhao Yong was so thrilled by the Elder Qin's words that he almost wanted to pilot a spacecraft and fly directly over the heads of their rivals. Chapter 305. Why has it gotten so dark? In a lavishly decorated yet tense conference room in a certain capital, The dim lighting cast a gloomy aura over the faces of the representatives from various countries. Representatives from certain nations gathered together, resembling a group seeking warmth while harboring ulterior motives. Previously, they had leaked the news of an impending restriction order, attempting to seize the initiative and dominate public opinion and the market. As expected, once the news broke, it was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples that stirred up a storm within their own borders. Many citizens, filled with righteous indignation, spontaneously organized sizable protests, filling the streets and alleys with banners and cries of dissent, resembling a surging tide of public sentiment that caused considerable trouble for the authorities. However, these self-proclaimed beacons of democracy and civilization completely ignored the demands of the populace, wielding their power like a sledgehammer to violently suppress the dissent. The lingering smell of tear gas and the remnants of broken protest signs became an ugly testament to their so-called maintenance of order. Yet, compared to the uproar of the protesting citizens, the high-ranking officials hiding in their fortified palaces were more worried about potential retaliation from a certain nation across the ocean. In their narrow yet shrewd understanding, they believed that this nation had significantly advanced in military technology over the years, now boasting formidable strength that was not to be taken lightly. By openly trampling on this nation's interests, they knew it would not sit idly by. There was a possibility of fierce retaliation, extreme measures, or even devastating counterattacks that would be hard to withstand. The leader sat at the head of the conference table, his brow furrowed. He cast a cold, penetrating gaze over the high-ranking officials from various nations, his expression as frigid as a winter lake. In a serious tone, he said, "This time we are fighting for our national interests, no doubt about it. However, we have also severely crossed the red line of this nation's interests, and they are not to be trifled with. Moving forward, they may adopt very hardline measures against us. I urge everyone to stay alert and be psychologically prepared. We cannot afford to lose our national dignity in fear." Hearing this, the prime minister of a certain nation quickly straightened his back, which was accustomed to flattery, and resolutely stated, "No matter what measures they take, we must not yield. Their new concept vehicles are like a sharp blade, piercing directly into our economic lifeblood. If we allow their cars to enter our market without obstacles, our automobile industry, which we have painstakingly built over the years, will be completely destroyed, becoming a stepping stone for the rise of that nation. Therefore, it is time for us to unite and stand together against them. We must not let them succeed." The president of a neighboring country also refused to back down, joining in the chorus. Indeed, this may seem like a competition in the business realm, but it is fraught with hidden currents and crises. A moment's carelessness could escalate into a real war. When that time comes, I hope everyone will not shy away, nor be cowardly. We must fight for our country, for our glory and interests, even risking our lives. Leaders from various countries nodded in agreement, echoing each other, filled with righteous indignation and fighting spirit, like a group of cornered beasts making their last struggle and roar. Just as they were immersed in this atmosphere of self-encouragement, preparing to resist the nation to the end, a secretary approached hurriedly, looking flustered. He bent down and whispered a few words into the president's ear. The president, who had been tense, suddenly seemed taken aback, as if hearing something unbelievable, and then a smile appeared on his face, a mix of unexpected joy and suspicion. "What did you say? They called to discuss the restriction order and want to visit us amicably? What is this about?" This news was like a spark thrown into a tense powder keg, instantly capturing everyone's attention. All eyes turned toward the president, particularly noticing the incongruous smile on his face. They couldn't understand why he was smiling at that moment. The Secretary of State, thinking he understood everything, smirked and said sarcastically, "It seems we have overestimated their resolve. Look, even though their military power is at its peak, far exceeding ours, deep down they still resort to their old, weak tactics. When faced with a problem, they still rely on the same old methods, hoping to resolve this extremely tricky issue through visits and negotiations. Do they think we are naive philanthropists?" The prime minister of another nation also caught on, following the Secretary of State's lead, nodding with a smug expression, and said, "It seems they have been too low-key for too long, accustomed to being restrained on the international stage. Now they want to act tough, but don't even know how to do it. They may have immense military power, but lack the courage to act decisively. If we had their kind of military strength, we would have been flaunting it around the world, doing whatever we pleased. How could we be as cautious and hesitant as now?" With that, he wore an expression of undisguised pride and disdain, as if that nation had already become the fish on his chopping board, ready for him to comment on. Then, like a child eagerly seeking answers, he asked, "Does this mean we don't have to worry anymore? Are they backing down and seeking peace with us?" The voice of the leader suddenly rang out again, breaking the brief moment of noise and speculation. He frowned slightly, his expression serious, with a hint of caution and doubt in his tone as he said, "We cannot be careless. We still do not know what the true intentions of that country are, so do not be deceived by appearances. We need to investigate the facts first." With that, he picked up the phone and, after some chaotic arrangements by the staff, managed to connect with the other side. The person who answered the call was an elder from that country. As the call connected, the conversation began with the usual polite formalities. However, there were hidden barbs in the words, and anyone with experience could sense the underlying tension. After exchanging a few pleasantries, both sides lost their patience and got straight to the point. The leader was the first to ask, My staff has reported that your country wishes to conduct a friendly visit regarding the restrictions. The elder responded with calm confidence. Succinctly and powerfully, that's correct. The leader paused for a moment, subconsciously tightening his grip on the phone, and thought to himself, is that it? Such a casual remark. Isn't there anything more to say? Do they really think a visit can sweep this matter under the rug? However, he dared not refuse outright. After all, the current strength of that country was evident, and if things escalated, he would be at a disadvantage. After some consideration, he suppressed his doubts and said, all right, I appreciate your country's willingness to resolve our trade conflicts through friendly negotiations. Although the situation is complicated, sitting down to talk is certainly better than resorting to conflict. As he spoke, he felt that his words sounded somewhat strange. They seemed similar to the rhetoric that country often used when dealing with international disputes. How had the roles reversed to the point where such phrases were coming from his own mouth? He shook his head, trying to dismiss these thoughts, but the feeling of oddity lingered. He asked again, so when does your country have time? The elder replied steadily, we have time today. As he spoke, he looked out the window, where a massive aerial vessel hovered in the distance, like a sci-fi beast lying in wait. It exuded a mysterious and powerful aura, akin to a long-dormant predator ready to reveal its fangs. Everything was prepared, just waiting for a command to cross mountains and seize directly into enemy territory. The leader instinctively glanced outside. It was midday, and the sun shone brightly, casting dazzling reflections off the palace's golden roof. He pondered that the distance between that country and his own was vast, and even with the fastest means of transportation, crossing the ocean in a day seemed almost impossible. He smiled and suggested, while I would like to hold negotiations with your country as soon as possible to resolve this misunderstanding, it's unlikely you can make it here today, and of course, we may not be able to reach your country either. The journey is not something to be taken lightly. We can't just fly over. However, the elder spoke with unwavering certainty. No need for that. We will arrive shortly. Shortly? Not only was the leader taken aback, but the representatives from various countries who were listening intently to the phone call, filled with suspicion, were also stunned by this statement. The Secretary of State immediately jumped up, eyes wide with disbelief, shouting, impossible. How could they possibly be so fast? We are over 10,000 kilometers away from that country. Even by plane it takes over 10 hours. It must take them quite a bit of time to get here. Could it be that they have invented some extraordinary mode of transportation that allows for instant travel? Others nodded in agreement, feeling that the secretary's reasoning was sound. At that moment, someone slapped their forehead and exclaimed, but given their current technological level, they might really have invented an incredible means of transport. Their previous space mechas were astonishingly fast. I saw it clearly during the live broadcast. When that thing moved, it generated such a powerful wind behind it that it felt like the earth was shaking. The force was incredible. Yes, I saw it too. And the space mechas are huge. They could definitely serve as a mode of transportation. If they are using one of those, they might actually arrive here quickly. Everyone began to discuss passionately, filling the conference room with noise once again. But amidst the commotion, there was an undercurrent of unease and fear, like the final clamor before a storm. Just then, the sky suddenly changed. Everyone froze in shock. What's going on? Why did it suddenly get dark? The group was filled with curiosity. How could the clear sky transform so quickly into a stormy one? They wanted to go outside to check the situation. Through the windows, they could see pedestrians outside as if frozen in place, staring up at the sky, their expressions filled with astonishment and confusion. But since they were engaged in a crucial phone call with that country, a negotiation that could affect national fortunes, they had to suppress their curiosity and keep listening to the conversation between the leader and the elder from that country. The leader furrowed his brow, his grip on the microphone tightening slightly, his voice tinged with both doubt and certainty. Mr. Qin, even if you have advanced transportation beyond imagination, crossing such a distance of over 10,000 kilometers still requires some time, doesn't it? Moreover, it's already noon here. We are about to have our meal. You say you'll arrive shortly. May I ask how exactly you plan to get here? As soon as he finished speaking, the line went silent, plunging into an eerie quiet. The leader was taken aback, just about to shout out to confirm if the call was still connected, when he suddenly heard Mr. Qin's calm and undeniable voice coming through. Come out to greet the guests. We have already arrived. Already arrived? Upon hearing this, everyone felt as if their heads had been struck by a heavy blow, their eyes nearly popping out in shock. They exchanged glances, their faces a mix of confusion and astonishment. Their minds went blank, unable to process what had just happened for a long moment. The leader hurriedly hung up the phone, filled with doubts and anxieties, and strode towards the door. The other senior officials followed closely behind, looking like a flock of startled birds. As they stepped out of the heavy door, they felt a massive shadow descending upon them, blocking out the scorching sun. Instinctively, they looked up, and in that instant, everyone present felt as if they were pushed back by an invisible force, collectively taking half a step back. Their legs went weak, and their eyes were filled with an indescribable shock, mouths agape as if they could fit an egg inside. There, hovering above them, was an enormous structure, resembling a giant spacecraft from a science fiction world. The vast deck, as large as a small landmass, shimmered under the sunlight with a cold, metallic sheen that exuded a sense of advanced technology. The sleek and robust lines of the craft, along with the mysterious symbols and intricate instruments, hinted at cutting-edge technological power from a distant land. For a brief moment, they almost thought that an alien spaceship was invading their world. an absurd and terrifying notion flashing through their minds. However, they quickly snapped back to reality. This was clearly not an alien craft, but rather a colossal air and space mothership from a certain nation. They had seen its grandeur on the Spring Festival gala stage from afar through screens before, feeling awed at the time, but now, with this behemoth hovering overhead, the overwhelming pressure was like a tidal wave crashing down, making the impression even more unforgettable. Of course, that wasn't the main point. The main question was, how did this thing suddenly appear above them like a ghost? The crowd exchanged glances, filled with confusion and fear. Yet no one had an answer. Just as they were still deep in shock from the appearance of the mothership, the newly appointed head of the intelligence agency rushed over, holding a small player reverently and handing it to the leader. The leader mechanically took it, as if in a trance, and instinctively looked at the screen. It turned out that the cameras installed near the palace had captured the astonishing moment when the mothership appeared. The crowd quickly gathered around, their gazes fixated on the small screen. Soon, they were confronted with images that could shatter their worldview. In the sky, it seemed as if space itself was being manipulated by an invisible giant hand, twisting and distorting like delicate silk, creating ripples. In an instant, a deep, dark void appeared, exuding a chilling gravitational pull that seemed to devour everything. At the same moment, the mothership emerged from this void, exuding an overwhelming majesty, as if a mythical beast had stepped through a rift in time and space. Watching this scene, the leader felt his scalp tingle, his legs weakened, nearly collapsing to the ground. He mumbled to himself, "Spatial leap. The mothership has actually mastered the technology of spatial leap." He was almost at a loss for words. The crowd was stunned, their eyes nearly popping out and their faces drained of color. They were well aware that the distance between certain countries and the Dragon Country was over 10,000 kilometers, which had previously acted like a natural moat. However, now this aerial battleship could instantly cross that distance. What did this mean? It meant that the Dragon Country's forces seemed to possess a door to anywhere, able to reach any desired location at will, showcasing an incredible level of mobility. In other words, while they used to think about how to intercept missiles launched by the Dragon Country, now they didn't even need to follow conventional routes. They could directly teleport and silently place nuclear weapons on your territory, leaving you with no time to react. Not to mention, this aerial battleship itself was a moving arsenal, integrating hundreds of nuclear-grade weapons. If they decided to act, they could instantly move right above you and unleash a devastating nuclear explosion, leaving you utterly powerless. At this moment, their trepidation towards the Dragon Country surged like wild grass in spring, and a chill ran down their spines. Just as their attention was glued to the video, a robust and slightly teasing voice suddenly rang out. "What is all this excitement about? Let me take a look too." This unexpected voice was like a thunderclap, instantly capturing the attention of everyone present. They turned to see Elder Qin, accompanied by a group of Dragon Country diplomats, already descending from the aerial battleship. Their presence exuded a calm yet authoritative aura, like a tidal wave crashing toward them. Behind them, dozens of bodyguards clad in individual combat mechs stood in formation, their armor gleaming with a cold sheen, energy lines flickering like battle gods forged from steel, emanating a chilling aura of lethal intent. Above them, apart from the massive aerial battleship overshadowing everything, dozens of space mech units were already on high alert, arranged in combat formation like a steel storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Observing this display, everyone understood clearly that should the Dragon Country decide to act, they would be crushed in an instant, and capturing the entire territory would be as easy as reaching into a pocket. Panic gripped the high-ranking officials completely. Not only the officials of that certain country were paralyzed. To be precise, the leaders of other nations, witnessing this scene that seemed straight out of a sci-fi blockbuster, were also feeling their scalp tingle, cold sweat pouring down as their backs became soaked. The president, feeling as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, tried to maintain a facade of calm. He clenched his jaw and forcefully handed the player to his subordinate, then tremblingly pointed at the mech units behind him, his voice wavering as he asked, "What is your country trying to do? Is this show of force a declaration of war?" Elder Qin glanced leisurely in the direction he was pointing, his expression calm as water, and replied without a hint of disturbance. "Didn't I already explain the situation over the phone? We are here for a friendly visit." The corners of the elder's mouth twitched uncontrollably, cursing inwardly. "A whole mech army swaggering into our territory, and they call this a friendly visit? Isn't this just blatant nonsense?" But despite his inner complaints, the situation was stronger than he was. He could only stare in silence. At this moment, the elder scanned the crowd with a gaze as piercing as a spotlight. The representatives from other nations felt the pressure in that gaze and, like guilty thieves, deliberately looked elsewhere, not daring to meet his eyes for fear of being burned by that stare. Seeing their reaction, the elder's lips curled slightly into a calm and meaningful smile as he said, "It's better to arrive at the right time than to arrive early. Just the people I wanted to find are all here now. Let us take this opportunity to resolve matters together. This way, I won't have to make friendly visits to your countries one by one." With that, the elder strode confidently through the crowd, leading his subordinates into the palace. The others exchanged glances, feeling helpless, and with heavy legs, they followed him inside. In the conference room, the atmosphere was so tense it felt like it could freeze someone to death. The elder sat down decisively, without beating around the bush. He expressed his strong dissatisfaction with the restrictions imposed by various countries, his words resonating with authority. I hope all nations can retract their restrictions. This is the baseline for fair trade and cannot be trampled upon. Hearing this, the high-ranking officials were infuriated, their faces turning red and fists clenching. Yet they dared not voice their anger. They knew very well that the current situation was no longer the same as before. The nation was no longer a soft target to be manipulated. Previously, they had almost faced a nuclear disaster, which was no laughing matter, and now, with this stance, similar tactics might not hesitate to be replayed over their heads. Moreover, if they were to confront the nation head-on, given its currently unfathomable strength, nuclear weapons might even become useless. Furthermore, they were not madmen. They still wanted to live. If a nuclear war were to erupt, they would also face destruction. So it was better to endure and maintain the current stability. While the officials were still hesitating, the Prime Minister, feeling restless, was the first to back down like an eager lapdog, hurriedly saying, "We will retract the restrictions immediately. We also believe that these restrictions undermine fair trade principles. And I apologize for the impact on your country's interests. We promise we will never make such a mistake again." All eyes turned to the Prime Minister, rolling their eyes internally. Just moments ago, he had been the most resolute, shouting that no matter what means the nation employed, they would not yield. Yet now, before any serious action was taken, he was already surrendering at a friendly visit? In fact, the officials were already intimidated by the imposing presence of this aerial battleship. Feeling immense pressure, let alone the Prime Minister. It should be noted that there is an irreconcilable feud between the Dragon Nation and a certain country. Now, with the Dragon Nation showcasing its overwhelming military strength, that country fears that escalating tensions could lead to a major conflict. And they would definitely be the first to be struck. Given their limited capabilities, they might as well be treated as mere targets by the Dragon Nation. They can't afford to be complacent. Following this, another country, aware of its role as a long-time follower of a certain power, also realizes the significant grudges between itself and the Dragon Nation. Now that the first country has shown signs of submission, they understand that if the first country is struck first, they would likely be the second unfortunate one. Hence, they too choose to submit swiftly. Finally, a group of nations from a certain region also decided to back down. The first and second countries are both strong nations nurtured in the East Asian context, with military strength far surpassing that of the countries in the region. If they are backing down, what about us? They have weighed their options and realized how fragile this temporary alliance is, leading to a domino effect of submissions. Then only one country was left. An elder from the Dragon Nation fixed his gaze intently on a certain leader. The leader, feeling uneasy, glanced around like a child who had lost their way, and finally said helplessly, "May we discuss this briefly?" The elder raised his hand, generously allowing them to discuss, but then changed his tone, stating, "Before you discuss, let me remind you that we seek fairness and justice, and do not wish to negotiate. I hope you understand our position." Upon hearing this, the leader understood that this was the Dragon Nation's bottom line, as hard as steel, leaving no room for negotiation. What was there to discuss? However, they had to put on a facade, so they took everyone outside to pretend to negotiate. Soon after, they returned, heads hanging low like defeated roosters, and gave their answer, submission. The elder looked at their demeanor and nodded in satisfaction. He stood up, brushed off his clothing, and said nonchalantly, "Dinner is ready at home, so we want to stay for a meal. Let us go." With that, the elder, accompanied by his armored bodyguards, strode away from the gathering, boarding a mothership. As the mothership ascended, the wind howled, tousling the elder's white hair. Yet, the chaos in their hearts was far greater than the disarray of his hair. The Secretary of State gazed at the mothership, which had already distorted space and vanished without a trace. Frustration evident on his face as he gritted his teeth. Are we to endure the Dragon Nation's bullying forever? The leader shot him a fierce glare and responded curtly, "What else can we do? If you don't want to be taken out by the Dragon Nation, just listen to them." After saying this, he looked at the now clear blue sky, sighed helplessly, filled with bitterness and resignation. Let us face reality. Things have changed. The Dragon Nation is no longer what it used to be. Chapter 308 Top Secret. After the decisive and powerful measures were taken by the Dragon Kingdom, the opposing side seemed completely deflated, losing all the arrogance they once displayed. They had to sheepishly retract the previously announced restrictive order that had stirred up quite a commotion. It is quite dramatic to note that their initial intention to issue the restrictive order was merely a test to gauge public sentiment regarding the potential backlash against the influx of vehicles from the Dragon Kingdom. In reality, the order had not even been fully implemented. However, even this bluff fell flat in the face of the Dragon Kingdom's firm and swift response, leaving them thoroughly embarrassed. The sound of that slap was crisp and loud, akin to heavy hammers striking their faces, leaving them humiliated and turning them into a laughingstock worldwide. Media outlets across various nations reported on the incident with sharp and mocking tones, some featuring shocking images of advanced aerial vessels hovering above, accompanied by headlines proclaiming the downfall of hegemony. Others produced video specials that juxtaposed the previous bold declarations of resistance against vehicles from the Dragon Kingdom with the astonished and cowardly reactions faced with the aerial vessels, leading to skyrocketing view counts filled with derisive comments. The citizens of those nations, upon hearing the news of the lifting of the restrictions, felt a surge of joy akin to fireworks being ignited, bursting into vibrant displays. After all, The new concept vehicles from the Dragon Kingdom boasted advanced features at astonishingly affordable prices, resembling treasures that had previously been barred by the restrictive order but were now finally within reach. As a result, in the streets and alleys of the cities, many people spontaneously organized, holding colorful banners filled with demands and celebratory messages, flooding the streets in a parade of celebration. However, the atmosphere of this parade was markedly different from previous protests against various unreasonable government measures, such as tax injustices and lack of social security. Instead, it boldly and openly shamed the authorities who had previously used heavy-handed tactics like water cannons and tear gas to suppress the populace for the sake of capital interests. In front of the Grand Palace, crowds gathered with fervor. Young students held homemade signs reading capital puppets, "Give us back our right to buy cars," their eyes filled with condemnation towards the authorities' previous missteps. Ordinary workers, dressed in neat uniforms, shouted about government betrayal, demanding that vehicles from the Dragon Kingdom be allowed. Their voices echoed across the spacious square, expressing a strong desire for high-quality, cost-effective vehicles. Even elderly individuals, trembling as they leaned on their canes, pointed towards the Palace of Power, denouncing the short-sightedness and misgovernance that harmed the people. This scene resembled a wild celebration of public sentiment turning against the authorities, with even the citizens of the opposing side unhesitatingly standing with the Dragon Kingdom. The spectacle was undoubtedly a source of discomfort for those in power, making them feel extremely uneasy. Standing at the luxurious, yet cage-like window of the palace, the president gazed at the bustling crowd of demonstrators outside, feeling a burning pain on his face as if he had been publicly slapped several times. The sensation seared through his cheeks and deep into his heart. He trembled with anger, flames of rage roaring in his chest. His tightly clenched fists turned white from the strain, wishing he could rush out and disperse the crowd. But reason poured cold water over his head, making him realize that he was utterly helpless in the face of this surging tide of public sentiment. After all, the people's grievances had run deep, and the display of strength from the other nation loomed over him like a sword of Damocles, making him hesitate to act recklessly. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his frustration, feeling as if he were tightly bound by ropes, unable to move, which was incredibly uncomfortable. At that moment, the Secretary of State hurried over, looking anxious. His hurried footsteps echoed in a series of panicked sounds on the polished marble floor. Ignoring the formalities, he approached the president directly, breathless yet urgent, and said, "Mr. President, I have an important message for you." The president was preoccupied with the chaotic scene outside, shrugged irritably, and replied with a furrowed brow, "No need, I've already seen it." His eyes remained fixed on the protesting crowd as if he wanted to vent his pent-up anger through his gaze, his brow furrowing even deeper, almost able to crush flies. The secretary followed his gaze and quickly shook his head, explaining, "I'm not talking about the rioting crowd outside, but about Mars Corp. As you know, Mars Corp is a major company in our country specializing in rocket research and has significant influence in the industry. I've heard they recently made some impressive technological advancements." Upon hearing this, the president, who was previously filled with irritation and helplessness, suddenly paused. The cloud of worry that had overshadowed his eyes was replaced by a glimmer of curiosity. It was as if a person trapped in a quagmire had grabbed hold of a lifeline. He quickly said, "Tell me more." Seeing this, the secretary's lips curled into a slight smile of satisfaction. He leaned closer to the president's ear, lowering his voice as if sharing a top-secret revelation. As he spoke, the president's expression gradually changed. A look of astonishment slowly spread across his face, his eyes widening, and his mouth slightly agape. Clearly taken aback by this unexpected and delightful news. "Is what you said for real?" The secretary patted his chest and revealed a sly smile. "Of course. I've already spoken with Mars Corp, and they are very welcoming for us to come and take a look." A flicker of hope reignited on the president's face. Once a prominent figure, he now felt his status had been taken away by the other nation, leaving him quite uneasy. However, hearing the news from the secretary, he felt that perhaps he could regain some face. He immediately ordered, "Let us go. Take me to Mars Corp. I want to see for myself what the situation is." The leader was eager and then headed to the company of a certain individual along with the Secretary of State. Since they had contacted in advance, the individual had been waiting for some time. Upon meeting, the leader excitedly shook the other's hand. "Dear Mr. Musk, I heard that your company has mastered the technology for landing on Mars." The individual glanced at the Secretary of State, who also had an expectant smile on his face. The individual calmly replied, "To be honest." Chapter 309. Two uncles arrived in a certain country. A massive aerial vehicle suddenly appeared in the sky, showcasing a remarkable space transition ability reminiscent of a sci-fi movie. This shocking scene was witnessed by countless eyes and quickly captured on many smartphones. These images spread rapidly across the internet, sparking waves of amazement wherever they were seen. Netizens from the country felt an overwhelming sense of pride, as if a flood had burst its dam, surging forth. Instantly, a heated discussion erupted on major online platforms, with related topics dominating trending lists, and comments pouring in like snowflakes. Such a powerful technology, akin to something only imagined in sci-fi novels, has been mastered by our country. It's like a technological myth come to life, absolutely incredible. Our research capabilities are skyrocketing, leaving other nations far behind. At first glance, I really thought aliens were invading. That scene was truly terrifying. Even we were shocked. let alone others. They must have been scared stiff. This is our country's confidence, showing them not to underestimate us. Look at how they used to boast and threaten to restrict our vehicles from entering their territory. What happened? Our massive aerial vehicle flew right over their heads, like visiting their own bedroom. They instantly cowered and didn't dare to issue that restriction anymore. What a relief. This is what it means to return a favor in kind, letting them know we are not to be trifled with. How can anyone say that our aerial vehicle is terrifying? It actually gives us a sense of security. With such a powerful national asset protecting us, sleeping at night feels much more reassuring. I need to smoke a couple more cigarettes, just to contribute to our national defense. I hope our country grows stronger and continues to develop more amazing technological achievements. I'll join you for one. Our country is getting stronger, and our confidence is growing. The grievances we suffered in the past will never happen again. I can't wait to see what miracles we will create next. Netizens from our country chimed in, some humorously teasing, others passionately praising, all marveling at the latest space transition technology developed by our nation. Meanwhile, in a quiet two-story building in a certain city, Smith was sitting on the toilet, a moment meant for relaxation. But the shocking image on his phone screen made his muscles tense as if he had been struck by an electric current. His eyes widened in disbelief, fixated on the scene of a massive spaceship making a space jump. The hand holding the phone trembled uncontrollably, as if afflicted by Parkinson's disease, while his mind was engulfed in a storm of overwhelming waves, each one crashing against the limits of his understanding. They actually did it. The nation had truly developed space jump technology. And how many days had it been? How could they have possibly achieved this so quickly? Smith was no longer merely shocked. He was profoundly shaken. He felt that his understanding of this nation had been completely overturned. The preconceived notions he had about the technological capabilities of various countries, along with the conventional judgments about research difficulty and timeframes, shattered like bubbles in his mind. At this moment, he was certain that this nation possessed a remarkably complete and advanced scientific research system. It was like a precise and efficiently operating superengine, with various departments and segments working in unison. From the deep accumulation of fundamental theoretical research to the bold innovation in applied technology development, and then to the rapid realization of results, it all came together seamlessly. This meant that the technological advancements in various fields had achieved a leap forward. Only in this way could they thoroughly study and transform the various blueprints they provided into tangible, world-shocking results in such a short time. It was terrifying. He was grateful to have joined this nation. Smith silently rejoiced, feeling increasingly convinced that his decision to escape was the right one. In the event of a world war, staying here would undoubtedly be the safest option. At this moment, he also realized that the military strength of this nation was formidable not only due to its deep-rooted foundations and the relentless efforts of its researchers, but also because he might have unknowingly contributed to it. It was even possible that his assistance had been significant. Thinking of this, he suddenly reached into his neck and pulled out a pendant. The pendant was ordinary, unremarkable, resembling cheap jewelry found on the streets. However, after skillfully fiddling with it, it astonishingly transformed into a USB drive. At this moment, he felt a deep inner conflict. On one hand, he was grateful for the stable life and research environment provided by this nation. On the other hand, he felt apprehensive witnessing its rapid rise, as he still retained remnants of his old allegiance deep within. In this struggle, he ultimately decided that he could no longer provide any information to this nation. Although he was already here, he deeply understood that the research capabilities had become a runaway horse, developing at a terrifying pace. If he continued to supply them with information, he would only be aiding in their strengthening. Should the situation between the two nations change in the future, wouldn't he be considered a traitor? Fine. It seemed he had already become a traitor long ago. In fact, Smith was quite conflicted. Although he was in a certain country, he didn't want it to grow stronger, especially when he realized that his information could continuously empower that nation. This inner conflict increasingly tormented him. At that moment, someone suddenly knocked on the bathroom door. "Dad, are you done in there?" It was Smith's little daughter. Her soft and tender voice was like the warm sun of spring, temporarily dispelling the gloom in his heart. "Dear, I'll be right out," Smith hurriedly replied, while frantically trying to rearrange the USB drive around his neck into a pendant shape, attempting to cover up his inner turmoil. "Okay, Dad. By the way, Dad, 2 uncles are outside and want to talk to you." Chapter 310. Who is fooling who? 2 uncles? Smith was slightly taken aback by his daughter's words, but he was not surprised. Recently, there had been people coming to him for similar interrogations from time to time. He knew his identity was special and his background complex, so he always cooperated actively, thinking that as long as he performed well, he might soon truly integrate into that nation and shake off the shadow of suspicion that followed him. After tidying up, he walked out of the bathroom and into the living room, where he found the visitors already waiting for him. However, he was somewhat surprised to see that they were not the people who had been looking for him recently. Instead, it was a middle-aged man and a young man. He had met the middle-aged man once before, and after quickly searching his memory, he politely asked, "Mr. Liu, what brings you here?" The person was indeed Liu Qingji, and the young man beside him was Su Chun. Liu Qingji grinned, his smile appearing friendly but with hidden implications, and said, surprised, "If nothing goes wrong, I might be reaching out to you more frequently in the future." Smith was unaware of the reasons behind this and did not inquire further. His long-term special experiences had taught him that it was best not to ask questions that shouldn't be asked. in this sensitive and complex situation. Being cautious in speech and action was the way to survive. Smith joked, "Are you here to thank me, Mr. Liu?" Lu Qingji was momentarily taken aback and chuckled softly. "Oh, Mr. Smith, why do you think that?" Smith showed a confident and proud expression, saying, "I saw that your nation's airspace mothership has now achieved the function of spatial leap. Isn't it thanks to the blueprints I provided?" Suddenly, a laugh interrupted their conversation. Smith looked over and found that it was Su Chen laughing. He was puzzled and a hint of displeasure crossed his face, and his tone became stiff. "Mr. Liu, what is your assistant laughing about?" Smith thought to himself that he was engaged in a serious discussion with Lu Qingji about a significant technological breakthrough concerning that nation. Yet this young man was being so disrespectful, which was quite infuriating. Lu Qingji did not expect that Smith would mistake Su Chun for his assistant. However, he didn't say much. Given the special identity of Su Chun and the fact that it was inappropriate to reveal it too early, it was reasonable to let Smith continue to misunderstand. At this moment, Lu Qingji also smiled and said cheerfully, "Mr. Smith, you can't really think that our aerospace mothership's achievement of space transition technology is related to the materials you provided, right?" Smith's expression stiffened, and he retorted, "Isn't there a connection?" Lu Qingji pinched his brow, the smile fading from his face, replaced by a serious expression. He said, "Mr. Smith, do you think our experts are fools? Are you not aware of the research value of your blueprints?" Smith was taken aback, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead and sliding down his temples as he hurriedly wiped it away. In fact, he was quite aware of the limited research value of that blueprint. It was merely a concept drawing of little worth. It had no detailed theoretical support. It could fool someone with a superficial understanding of technology, but to try to deceive a nation with advanced technology was simply a dream. It could be seen through in an instant. Smith felt guilty but was still reluctant to give up, trying to find reasons to defend himself. "But what about your country's aerospace mothership? Its demonstrated space transition capability is evident." As he spoke, he suddenly gained confidence, as if he had grasped a lifeline. Straightening his back, his eyes were filled with stubbornness that refused to be denied. Lu Qingji chuckled, seemingly having anticipated Smith's response. "Mr. Smith, don't you find it amusing? Do you know how difficult it is to research space transition technology? You can't really think that the space transition capability of the aerospace mothership is due to the blueprints you provided earlier. How long has it been since you provided those blueprints? Do you really think we could have developed space transition technology in such a short time?" Smith was stunned. In fact, he had considered this question. How could a nation develop space transition technology in such a short time? Even acknowledging their research capabilities, it would normally take several years at the very least to achieve such results. It had only been a few months, and they had already overcome this hurdle. It was indeed astonishingly fast. Smith weakly asked, "So, your country has been researching space transition technology for quite some time?" Lu Qingji didn't reply, but gave Smith a look that seemed to say, what else could it be? This made Smith realize why it was possible for them to develop the space transition capability in such a short time. They had been in the research process all along, and it was just a coincidence that he had provided them with a space transition blueprint. Smith preferred to believe it was a coincidence rather than accept that the country had developed the technology based on that blueprint of little research value. If that were the case, wouldn't he have provided no help at all? If he hadn't contributed anything of value, how could he gain their trust? He pondered for a moment, then turned to Lu Qingji and asked, "Since Mr. Liu didn't come here for the space transition data, what is the purpose of your visit?" Lu Qingji smiled calmly, not directly stating his reason, but instead countered with a question. "May I ask, Mr. Smith, how have you been during your time in this country?" Smith nodded, a faint smile appearing on his face as he replied, "Not bad. Your side has taken great care of us and provided a lot of assistance. To be honest, the pressure has been quite high for many years where I used to be, but coming here makes me feel at ease. If possible, I would like to stay here indefinitely." Lu Qingji chuckled and said, "We would welcome Mr. Smith to stay in our country, but as you know, your identity is quite sensitive. Until we can fully trust you, you will likely remain under our surveillance." Smith quickly asked, "Mr. Liu, how can I gain your trust?" Lu Qingji secretly chuckled but put on a troubled expression, saying, "It's somewhat difficult to explain, but it can also be quite simple." Smith pressed on. "Please feel free to say." Lu Qingji smiled broadly, a hint of insistence in his smile, and said, "We need to see Mr. Smith's sincerity." Chapter 311, Young Man. Do you understand technology? Sincerity? Smith fell into deep thought, considering how to demonstrate his sincerity, various ideas flashing through his mind like a revolving lantern, but none seemed reliable. To prevent Smith from overthinking, Lu Qingji decided to give him a hint. "In fact, we really need the technology blueprints from your side." Upon hearing this, Smith felt a chill run down his spine, inwardly exclaiming that it was not good. How could I have any blueprints? Although he did have blueprints, they were just meant to deceive this country, just like the space transition engine. Seeing that Smith remained silent, Lu Qingji slightly furrowed his brow, a hint of unnoticeable doubt flashing in his eyes. He glanced at Su Chun, and their eyes met, seemingly conveying a tacit understanding. At that moment, Su Chun calmly smiled and broke the silence, saying, "It seems that Mr. Smith is in a bit of a dilemma. Of course, it's possible that he doesn't have any blueprints from his previous affiliation, rather than intentionally withholding information from us." His tone was calm and his expression indifferent. Yet an invisible pressure began to permeate the room, making the atmosphere increasingly tense. Lu Qingji helplessly shrugged his shoulders, feigning regret as he said, "Then there's nothing we can do. It will be hard for us to trust Mr. Smith." As he spoke, he pretended to stand up, moving his chair with a creaking sound, his clothes brushing against each other, seemingly preparing to leave. This action appeared casual, but was actually a subtle test and pressure on Smith, intending to force him to reveal his true intentions. Sure enough, seeing this, Smith became anxious. It felt as if an invisible hand had tightly grasped his heart, the veins on his forehead slightly bulging, his eyes filled with urgency and fear. He knew that under the current circumstances, he absolutely could not let Lu Qingji leave just like that. Otherwise, his stable life in that region would likely collapse in an instant. He could very well lose the trust of the local authorities completely. At that time, he would find himself in a dire situation where neither side could accommodate him. To put it poetically, he would become like a rootless floating weed, at the mercy of fate. "Mr. Lu, please wait." Smith hurriedly called out to stop him, his voice slightly hoarse from nervousness, rising in pitch. "Oh." Lu Qingji halted his movement, turning to look at Smith, his gaze sharp as an eagle, as if wanting to penetrate his very soul. "Mr. Smith, do you have anything else to say?" Smith hesitated, his lips trembling slightly, his hands unconsciously clenching and relaxing, his mind in a fierce struggle weighing his options. Finally, helplessness and the instinct to survive prevailed. He gritted his teeth, stood up, and said sincerely, albeit with a slight tremor in his voice, "Please wait a moment." With that, he hurriedly walked towards the bedroom, a mix of panic and determination in his steps, disappearing behind the door, leaving Lu Qingji and Su Chun exchanging a glance, quietly waiting. Before long, Smith emerged, clutching a stack of documents tightly in his hands, his expression grave. He looked unwell, pale with a hint of darkness, as if bearing an enormous burden. He placed the documents carefully on the table, his movements cautious, tinged with reluctance and helplessness, mumbling, "Mr. Lu, this is something I brought over when I came to this region. I'm not sure how useful it will be for you. Please take a look." Lu Qingji reached out to take the documents, his gaze lingering briefly on the cover, his expression calm, making it hard to discern his emotions. He then handed it to Su Chun without hesitation. Su Chun did not decline, directly opening the documents. As soon as his eyes touched the contents, they widened in surprise, a spark of unmistakable excitement flashing in his eyes. "Wow, this is incredible." The documents contained blueprints for an extraterrestrial colonization plan, covering many cutting-edge technological fields. From life support systems to environmental transformation schemes, intricate base construction blueprints, and other conceptual designs that Su Chun had not previously considered but were immensely beneficial for extraterrestrial colonization. Su Chun was utterly shocked, thinking to himself, "Isn't this exactly the colonization technology I've been desperate to obtain? With these blueprints, wouldn't that mean I could realize my farming plans? Wow, this is like finding a pillow when I was sleepy, such effortless fortune." He forcefully suppressed his inner excitement, maintaining a facade of calm, but his slightly trembling fingers betrayed his exhilaration. At that moment, the long silent voice of the system in his mind suddenly rang out, detecting that the host has identified certain technological concept blueprints. Beginning decompilation warning. Decompilation failed. The system is now calling upon internal technical resources for autonomous compilation. Compilation progress, 1. 2. 3 compilation progress, 100. Compilation successful. Congratulations, host, you have acquired technology related to the colonization plan. As the system notification concluded, excitement surged within him. A series of technical blueprints and related theoretical knowledge poured into Su Chun's mind like a flowing stream of data, accompanied by the sounds of the system. Su Chun felt a slight throbbing in his head, but he was overjoyed. He quickly absorbed this new knowledge like a sponge soaking up water, and a smile involuntarily appeared at the corners of his mouth, secretly thinking, "The agricultural plan is stable." Smith noticed the fleeting smile on Su Chun's face, which he keenly captured, but he didn't pay much attention to it. At this moment, his mind was filled with tension and anxiety, like a prisoner awaiting judgment. He was also in a state of desperation, trying to obtain technological blueprints to demonstrate his sincerity, but he had no genuinely useful blueprints. Although he had some conceptual designs used to deceive the other side, those blueprints were wildly unrealistic and utterly crazy. Most importantly, with the current technological strength of the other side, they would definitely see through these blueprints as nothing more than fanciful concepts. If he presented these things again, wouldn't it just be another attempt to deceive them? Thinking of this, despair washed over Smith, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, repeatedly muttering to himself, "It's over. This time it's really over. I won't be kicked out, will I?" It wouldn't matter if he was kicked out himself, but he didn't want his family and children to be expelled too. Lu Qingji was unaware of Smith's worries. He was only concerned about whether the blueprints held any actual value for Su Chun. So he looked at Su Chun and asked, "How is it?" Su Chun reined in his smile, returning to a calm demeanor, and nodded. His response was concise yet affirming, "Not bad." Though he spoke lightly, his heart was already bursting with joy, feeling as if he had won a massive lottery. This harvest felt like a tremendous windfall. The other side was on the verge of entering space and launching a true colonial agricultural plan. A promising future lay ahead. Su Chun felt the blood within him ignite, unable to wait to return and get started. Now Lu Qingji felt relieved, his tense expression relaxed instantly, and a look of satisfaction appeared on his face. He looked at Smith, and the previously furrowed brow was completely smoothed out. He proactively extended his hand and said warmly, "It's clear that Mr. Smith is quite sincere. Thank you for your help. The other side will not let your efforts go to waste." Smith looked puzzled, filled with questions. He was confused internally, wondering what is going on. The other side actually believed it? They actually think this blueprint, which is even more exaggerated and less reliable than a spatial jump engine, has value. Suddenly, his gaze inadvertently swept over Su Chun. A flash of insight struck him, and he realized Lu Qingji actually let his assistant assess the value of this blueprint. What does he know? He is so young. Does he understand technology? Chapter 312, Interstellar Colonization Plan. After obtaining the blueprints, Su Chun and Lu Qingji bid farewell to Smith. Smith stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the two figures until they gradually disappeared from view. He let out a sigh of relief and muttered to himself, "Fortunately, the person from that country doesn't understand technology. Otherwise, it would have been really hard to get through this." His eyes lingered on Lu Qingji, watching him walk steadily to the car. Just as Lu was about to turn back inside, Smith suddenly furrowed his brow, a hint of suspicion flashing in his eyes. To his surprise, Lu Qingji naturally opened the car door and gestured for the young man, whom he thought was not tech-savvy, to get in. This seemingly ordinary action struck Smith as particularly odd due to his keen observation. Could it be that this young man was not Smith's assistant? As a former director of a prominent intelligence agency, Smith had honed an extraordinary ability to perceive subtle details through countless intelligence confrontations, and he sensed something was amiss. At that moment, a sense of familiarity flashed in his mind, a face from deep within his memory appearing hazily. He concentrated, trying to pull on that elusive thread of recollection. Suddenly, it struck him, his heart raced, and his face showed surprise. Wasn't he that the young man who frequently appeared during the gala event from that country? Officially, he was introduced as a student representative. But what kind of student representative could be associated with someone like Lu Qingji and receive such attention from him? Doubts surged like a tide. At this moment, Smith felt a strong impulse to investigate Su Chun, an instinct forged through years of intelligence work, like an invisible hand tugging at his rationality. However, he quickly began to laugh at himself as if he had just heard an absurd joke. "I really have a case of professional illness. I'm no longer the director of that agency, yet I'm still thinking about investigating intelligence." Smith was well aware of the capabilities of the people from that country. Now that he was in their territory, every move he made was under their scrutiny. If he were not careful and actually began investigating Su Chun, once discovered, he would be left with no way to explain himself, and there would be no clearing his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Being expelled would be the least of his worries. He weighed the situation in his mind repeatedly, finally letting out a long sigh and reluctantly dismissing the thought. Forget it. A young man who doesn't understand technology isn't worth investigating. Meanwhile, Su Chun settled comfortably into the car seat, a relaxed smile on his face as he teased. "Old Lu, so considerate, even helping me open the door." Lu Qingji sat in the driver's seat, turned his head with a grin that showed both care and familiarity, and said, "I saw you holding on to valuable materials, and I thought it would be inconvenient for you." He then asked, "By the way, how is the data this time? Is it better than the previous space jump engine? I saw you nearly bursting into laughter back then." Su Chun paused slightly, a hint of regret on his face as he feigned innocence, saying, "Didn't I do well? I remember I held back my laughter." Lu Qingji looked at his expression and couldn't help but chuckle, teasing, "With your level of cunning, I can see right through you." Su Chun also smiled, and as the laughter gradually faded, his gaze fell on the stack of blueprints in his hand. His expression became serious and focused as he slowly answered Lu Qingji's question. "These blueprints have provided me with a lot of research inspiration. In my opinion, their value is no less than that of the advanced technology related to space transition." Upon hearing this, Lu Qingji's eyes flashed with surprise. Although he had not witnessed the practical power of the space transition technology firsthand, he had seen enough astonishing videos from other sources to understand its groundbreaking nature. The ability to distort time and space, akin to tearing open a rift in the universe for cross-space transportation, presents a vast array of potential applications. Whether on the ever-changing battlefield, enabling sudden strikes to defeat enemies and significantly enhancing combat efficiency, or building high-speed transport corridors in the vast universe for seamless interstellar exchanges, it showcases an impressive level of effectiveness. It can be said that it is the cornerstone that allows the nation to leap over the threshold of time and step into the future. Now, Su Chun boldly asserted that the newly acquired blueprints were of equal value, which made Lu Qingji intensely curious and eager to explore further. What kind of incredible technology could it be? His eyes were filled with inquiry and confusion, resembling a curious child gazing at Su Chun. Noticing his gaze, Su Chun smiled mysteriously and revealed, "This information is about farming." Lu Qingji furrowed his brows slightly upon hearing this, his face showing a mix of confusion and unexpectedness. In his understanding, while farming technology is crucial for the foundation of people's livelihoods and holds great significance, it seemed too grounded and ordinary compared to the space transition technology that can break through the barriers of time and space. The two appeared worlds apart. How could they be compared? After pondering for a moment, he spoke up. How can farming technology compare to space transition technology? However, food security is indeed fundamental to the nation, and if there is advanced technology that can greatly enhance yield, that would be quite good. But our domestic arable land has been mostly developed, Perhaps there isn't much more land for large-scale farming. Seeing his misunderstanding, Su Chun waved his hand, his expression calm and confident, saying, "It's not about farming on Blue Planet. It's about farming on another planet." Lu Qingji was taken aback at first, instinctively repeating this phrase in his mind, as if doubting whether he had heard it wrong. Farming on another planet? In an instant, he felt as if struck by lightning and suddenly realized. His eyes widened in shock, and his voice slightly elevated due to excitement. Farming on another planet? Lu Qingji's heart raced. An indescribable sense of joy and anticipation surged within him. He instantly recognized that this was no ordinary breakthrough in farming technology. It contained profound implications for the nation's exploration and utilization of cosmic resources. It was the golden key to unlocking a new era of interstellar colonization. Once this technology is mastered, the nation could break free from the constraints of resources on Blue Planet and transform the vast and boundless alien world into an inexhaustible treasure trove of resources. The future development space will be vast and limitless like the universe. No wonder Su Chun said that this technology is comparable to space transition technology. Even though he was already stirred up inside, he still found it hard to believe. He fixed his gaze on Su Chun and asked for confirmation. "Xiao Chun, are you saying?" Su Chun nodded earnestly, his eyes shining with fervent light, his tone firm and powerful, resonating with conviction. "We can initiate the interstellar colonization plan now." Chapter 313, Farming on Other Planets. Su Chen's words echoed in the vehicle, like a rallying horn, exciting and uplifting. With just a few words, Su Chen conveyed profound implications. This meant that the nation was about to embark on a grand interstellar journey that would rewrite human history. Upon returning to the laboratory, Su Chen did not dive into the experimental equipment and data as usual, but first called Elder Qin. At that moment, Elder Qin was organizing a crucial high-level meeting. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense yet fervent, with many high-ranking officials gathered, either sitting upright or whispering to each other, discussing various matters concerning national development strategy. Elder Qin stood at the podium, holding documents, articulating the core content of the meeting with a steady and powerful voice that resonated in the spacious conference room. Normally, meetings of this level have strict procedures and discipline, which should not be easily interrupted. However, when an assistant rushed to Elder Qin's side and whispered that Su Chun was calling with important matters to report, Elder Qin's expression changed, and without hesitation, he raised his hand to pause the meeting. Leaving the group of puzzled and somewhat discontented officials aside, he quickly walked to a corner to answer the call. "That brat. Why is he calling at this time? I'm in a meeting." Although Elder Qin's tone carried a hint of feigned annoyance, there was more emphasis on the importance and anticipation of Su Chen's call. Hearing the noisy background on the other end of the line, Su Chen realized that his call might not be at the best time. He quickly said, "You can continue with the meeting. I'll contact you later." However, Elder Qin laughed heartily and said, "Forget it. Your matters are more important. Go ahead, what is it?" Su Chen grinned and joked, "What you just said really surprises me." After a pause, he stated the purpose of his call. "Elder Qin, I believe it's time for our nation to initiate the interstellar colonization plan." Elder Qin, who had just picked up a water bottle to moisten his dry throat, suddenly trembled at this remark, nearly dropping the bottle. The smile on his face instantly froze, replaced by shock and confusion. He put down the water bottle and seriously repeated what Su Chun had just said. "Xiao Chun, what did you just say? You want to apply to start the interstellar colonization plan? Doesn't this involve many technical challenges? You previously mentioned that it might take some time." Su Chen calmly replied, "It can already be resolved." Elder Qin's voice quivered with excitement. "So soon?" He glanced around, noticing that no one in the meeting room was paying attention to them for the moment, and lowered his voice urgently. "By the way, do you have a computer next to you? We have just seized the opportunity, so please share with us your interstellar colonization plan." After Mr. Qin hung up the phone, he hurried back to the conference room, where the senior executives immediately erupted in complaints. Mr. Zhao was the first to stand up, visibly displeased, and said, "Hey, Mr. Qin, where did you go? You disappear to take a call and leave us old folks here. What's going on?" Others chimed in, shaking their heads or showing their displeasure, expressing their dissatisfaction with the abrupt interruption of the meeting. Mr. Qin seemed unfazed, his expression serious yet excited. He waved his hand and immediately announced, "Today's meeting is temporarily cancelled." This left everyone in the conference room even more confused, looking at each other with bewilderment and shock. "What just happened?" Someone murmured quietly, preparing to get up and leave. Mr. Qin noticed this and raised his voice, authoritative and undeniable. "I said the meeting is cancelled, not that you can leave. Come back. Someone will hold a meeting for you shortly." The group, filled with suspicion, returned to their seats, whispering and speculating about what would happen next. They wondered if there was an urgent directive from the top or some major change occurring. Before long, several staff members entered one after another, quickly adjusting the screen. After connecting to the communication software and operating with tension and order, a young man's face appeared on the big screen. It was Su Chun. The crowd was even more puzzled seeing him. Why was he the one holding the meeting? What was Mr. Qin thinking? Isn't Su Chun a researcher? Can he hold a meeting for us too? Mr. Zhao, looking particularly confused, approached Mr. Qin and quietly asked, "What's going on? Why did you bring in Xiao Chun?" Mr. Qin smiled mysteriously, leaning closer to Mr. Zhao's ear and whispering, "You'll find out soon." Mr. Zhao was amused by his demeanor, rolling his eyes and saying, You're keeping me in suspense. I want to see what you're up to. As the staff successfully adjusted the video, Mr. Chin took a seat in the audience. All the senior executives focused their attention on Su Chun on the big screen, their eyes filled with curiosity and anticipation, waiting for him to speak. At that moment, the conference room was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop, but faint whispers of suppressed discussion could still be heard. Everyone was internally guessing what Su Chun would discuss next. Su Chun was fully prepared. He straightened his back, his gaze firm and confident, scanning the room full of executives. Clearing his throat, he began, "Respected leaders, thank you for giving me some of your time. I hope to share a few words with you. Recently, we have made significant breakthroughs in agricultural technology that could change the current production landscape. Therefore, I propose that the country initiate an interstellar colonization plan." Upon hearing this, the audience was momentarily stunned, their minds racing to connect the dots between the agricultural breakthroughs and the interstellar colonization plan. Their faces were filled with confusion. Before they could react, Su Chun continued, "I think some leaders might be curious about the connection here. What I want to say is that the series of technologies we have developed are all aimed at facilitating interstellar colonization. In other words, after the interstellar colonization program is initiated, we will be able to farm on other planets using our agricultural techniques." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire venue fell silent, as if time had frozen. After a few seconds, the atmosphere ignited like a powder keg, erupting into a commotion. People stared wide-eyed in disbelief, and whispers filled the air. The interstellar colonization program. Farming on other planets. It was hard to believe, truly hard to believe. Someone punch me. I can't be dreaming, right? Ah, that hurts. This is real. I'm not dreaming.